Welcome, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be going over some really good materials here today, and get a notebook, get a pen, get ready to get started. It's going to be a fairly extensive training, and it's going to give you enough information and materials so you guys can actually get out there and get rocking on this thing right away. So just hang tight. We're going to probably have a little bit of extra time here, just waiting for everyone to get on, but we're going to get started here shortly. Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate all of the dedication that you guys have had to our company and have had over the last few months. So many things have, I'd want to say changed, but really the best way to say is improved. So my name is Beto Paredes, for any of you that haven't met me or have talked to me in person. And I am a partner in Advanced Wellness Solutions, which is what we're here to talk about, and CEO of Beto Paredes Family Companies, which is most of where you reps have come from in establishing this opportunity. I can tell you that there has been some deep meetings, some late nights, and some real excitement over what it is that we've discovered in the last period of time that's going to really make what you're doing with us here very lucrative and something that you can get into immediately, even this week, and start making money. And so we're going to kind of go over everything that we can. We're not in a big hurry today. Today we actually have set aside a good 3-hour period. We may use up all 3 hours. We may not. It just depends on the process here. But what does matter is that by the time we get off this call, you will have the knowledge as well as the materials needed to be able to get out and start working with diagnostic imaging centers and introducing these programs that we have for them. And for those of you that are involved with Beto Paredes Family Companies, this is a stacked sale. There's other opportunities coming and reasons for you to be reaching out to these imaging centers with some of the other opportunities we have. But this is the hottest thing we've got right now. This is what you guys have available to you immediately. You can get track on this literally right after this call. You can start making phone calls, and so there's a lot of value in what we're going to be sharing with you guys today. We're very excited about it. On the call with me, I've got Michael. I've also got Chris. They are going to be speaking and also helping me with the training here as we kind of go forward. And Mike, I heard you. Chris, do you have audio? Make sure Chris has actually established his audio connection here, guys. 1 second. Chris, can you hear us? I can see that you've got your phone there, but it doesn't look like it's active. Guys, give me just 1 second. We want to make sure Chris has got audio. Let me just make sure. One moment, everybody. And Mike, you're there, yeah? Mike, are you with us? He was there a second ago.
Yes, Beto, I'm here. I'm sorry, I was having a little trouble with my mute on my system.
Okay, not a problem, as long as you're there.
Here.
Okay, so hopefully Chris will get access here. He's not speaking first necessarily, so we'll give him a minute. We're just gonna go ahead and get started with this. So what I've got in front of me here is the PowerPoint presentation. You guys have that by email and PowerPoint. You also, is that Chris? Okay, Mike, we're just going to have to kind of work on that when it's time for him to speak, but he won't be speaking for a minute, so we'll give him a minute to try to get his audio established and help him out if we can't get that going. But yeah, okay, so for any of you that have trained, yes, Mike, we can hear you. It's Chris that we don't have. So
Want me to try?
Yeah, hopefully Chris will. Let's give it a minute here. He's not going to be speaking for a minute. I don't think we'll even have him on for at least an hour. So let's give him a chance to connect it. If it comes to that, then we'll just deal with that at that point. There he is. What's up, Chris?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry about that. I didn't put in the audio code, so I've got it now.
Not a problem. Now that you're here, everyone, this is Chris and Mike, are my partners in AWS. So nice to have you guys on here. So, and Chris, I'll be turning the screen over to you when we talk about analysis for diagnostic centers. And for now, we're gonna start out with the PowerPoint. We're gonna go through the PowerPoint, everyone, and then we're gonna actually go through some other materials, some of the materials that they're actually added, and you can grab those under handouts. Okay, you guys should be able to download all the handouts that we have right here from GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, and so you just want to have those on your computer. So when I'm going through them, you can also go through them with me. Okay, so we're talking currently about the presentation that we have specifically for the diagnostic centers in the PowerPoint. This is something that you guys can email. It's something that one moment here, let me. Guys, Chris and Mike, just unmute yourself when it's time for you to talk. I went ahead and just did that for background noise. And you guys may hear some background noise with me because I'm at home. As they'd mentioned earlier, my baby was born on the 6th, and so I'm here at the house helping out my wife and making sure that I'm available to her for things that she needs because she's in recovery. But yeah, we have a brand new baby girl, Iris Camille is her name. So we're real excited. We're got new life in the house. So alrighty. So basically what this comes down to, everyone, is let's talk about the industry a little bit. And then let's kind of break into the presentation from that perspective. In the ANS industry, there has been our company and some of the other distributors out there that have been selling the device program directly to physician practices. And we've probably got the longest standing experience with working with physicians. Mike's actually been in this industry from close to its inception and has placed over 500 units himself. And there's a number of, let's just say, challenges in the physicians community that has really required a more intelligent, more direct way of facilitating this program in the medical industry. Doctors' practices are difficult sales. A lot of times, doctors really aren't buyers. Okay, when you're looking at a practice, it's not common for them on an individual practice level to actually purchase medical devices. It's not as frequent as things like pharmaceuticals, laboratories, other things that they actually order. And so it's been a somewhat successful opportunity for some physician practices, most of them being very large practices with more than one physician that's attending. And it's just been a very big challenge for the industry in general. Well, what we discovered was that we are really selling to the wrong people. We're selling to the wrong audience. Everybody in the industry is selling to the wrong audience. This is really a medical device program that's built for a diagnostic center. And when you're looking at the actual opportunity in kind of a grand scheme, you could have one physician's practice that operates this device and will kind of run out of patients, even if they're a fairly large practice, in 3 to 4 months, because they basically ran everybody through that's got medical necessity tied to the device. And so most of these physician practices are getting caught up into a 5-year lease, paying off the device. And after 3 or 4 months, even if they're successful, they kind of run out of an opportunity until they can establish medical necessity, or a period of time has gone by where they can retest with some of their patients. And so when you're looking at a diagnostic center, we've got the exact opposite valuation. They're already receiving a number of referrals and orders, test orders from their physician network. And they establish their entire business model on something very different than a practice does. And their business model is just very straightforward. They have devices like an MRI machine, for example. We're going to kind of break down diagnostic centers for you on this call too, because it's important that you understand them. Okay, it's important that when you go in to speak with the imaging center management and the owners or the directors, that you understand their business. Okay, it's important for more than one reason. One of them is because you need to be able to speak the language that they speak, number one. But number two, you need to get a visceral understanding yourself of why this device is probably going to be the most lucrative opportunity they've ever invested in. And the imaging centers and the diagnostic centers, they're a buyer's market. Okay, that's what they actually are. And they're not as much as a physician's practice where they're not really a buyer in this industry. But imaging centers and diagnostic centers specifically, that's what they do. They buy equipment. They buy equipment, they floor it, they establish it, they market the opportunity to the physicians network that they have. And instead of having a practice that may operate their device and basically run through their patient population, for an imaging center or diagnostic center, it's fairly endless, because what they deal with is a network of physicians. The example that we're going to be using today, once I kind of flip it over to Chris, is an actual very large deal that we're working right now, right here in Las Vegas with a company called Pueblo Imaging. Their referral network is vast. They've got over 2,000 doctors in that referral network. They've got 7 locations. By the time we're done establishing with these guys, there could be anywhere between 14 to 20 devices that are officially sold in to their programs, especially once they realize just how lucrative this is, not only from the financial side, but also from the referral side, because our test actually establishes opportunities for other tests that they have in their imaging center. And so we're going to talk about all that stuff. It's all in the PowerPoint here as we go through it. But this is a buyer's market. Okay, imaging center management is going to make decisions on buying from us way faster than a physician would. They're normally working in the exact same environment, no matter what it is that they have. For the most part, they have radiologists that are their technicians that are operating these tests. And so it's a kind of a very symmetrical opportunity for these imaging centers to buy into this program, and they can bill on it. Okay, they can bill on it. It's a very important piece for the imaging center. Now, obviously, many of you have in our initial training have looked at the valuation from the physician side. Okay, this is really good science. Okay, it's great medicine. It's a very lucrative for a doctor, not just from potential reimbursements if they operated the device, but from the fact that they can actually establish better patient population management programs, better wellness programs. They can treat their patients much more directly because they have the information and the data that they need to be able to do that. And so what the imaging or diagnostic center will be offering to their physician network is the opportunity to have this report done and have the test ordered from their center, just like they do with any of the other stuff that they have. It's a less expensive than almost every program that they're operating. And we have built software that establishes one very important thing that I want you guys to consider. Okay, there isn't another competitor out there that's going to be able to outperform us. If another distributor that actually has a similar ANS device goes into an imaging center, there's just absolutely no way for them to compete with us, because we have actually built a proprietary platform that allows the imaging centers to upload these reports, allows those reports to be turned in encounter forms where all of the actual algorithms for the reimbursements are laid out, and then allowing the physician practices to both log in and download the reports, as well as schedule through this platform their patients to come into the center. Nobody has that in the entire industry. And so to work at a level the way we're working, in other words, it's a lot more in the communication side of things to establish a program like this for an imaging center or diagnostic center, because instead of it just being a regular single practice, they're dealing with a referral network. And in order to deal with that referral network most directly, you have to have the tools associated in order for that to be successful. Well, we are the only company and the only opportunity in the country that actually has a fully managed platform system for diagnostic and imaging centers. There would be no way that they would have an interest in any of the other distributors in the way they're set up, because they don't have the actual virtual back office and platform that we have. And so we are a one-of-a-kind operation in this business model. And even if our competitors see what we're doing, because this is definitely going to be something they're going to be scratching their chin over. They can't compete with us. They're months behind us. They'd have to develop, create, and establish software like we have, and we've already got it built. Okay, so we're going to be kind of going through that as we go through the PowerPoint. But that's the big exciting thing here, guys, is we're going into a buyer's market. Okay, they actually for any of you that have worked in the E&S industry, and I've got a number of you on here that I've worked with in other companies even in the past. The reality is physicians are in a buyer's market. They're very risk adverse, and it's a difficult decision for them. Where for an imaging or diagnostic center, it is a very simple decision for them. The metrics of why they would want to do it are all really based on what is the frequency of potential patient population that needs the test ordered. That's one. And two, what are the billing reimbursements? Okay, because they don't establish the patient population programs, although they will offer the materials to the physicians, just like we've had to a degree for any of you that were involved in our physician sales programs. They still have all the marketing material that they can give to their physicians in order to establish communication with their patients. And so we're going to be covering some of that stuff as well today. But yeah, so very exciting stuff. Okay, I'm a huge fan of the way this is laid out. The sales opportunity here are just tremendous because of the fact that each of these imaging centers or diagnostic centers are going to have a certain size of network. Okay, even a smaller establishment that's got 100 to 200 doctors in the referral network is just worlds different than just going into a single practice. Okay, so this is a very exciting thing for us. We really believe it's going to be a disruption in the industry, because this whole thing should have evolved to this style of sale, but what it required was software. It required a platform. Well, we built that platform. Okay, so it's very exciting stuff for us, and we're going to kind of run through this and kind of get you there. So take advantage of your physician network and earn big with AWS and the RM3A medical device. Your doctors will be excited. So this is a program that we're establishing directly with the imaging centers and the diagnostic centers. Okay, they will be providing the space where the devices will be living. They will hire their own med techs. Okay, and in this environment, that's what they do. I mean, their entire business is based off of technicians operating tests, reading those tests, and getting the results back to doctors. So we're following the exact same program. You can kind of almost look at this as a business in a box for an imaging center for the program that we have. So once we've established the medical, the good science, I guess is the best way of putting it, the good medicine with the imaging centers, and they understand why doctors are going to order this test, then it's really just a matter of deciding that they're willing to make the investment and actually hire the med techs and the people that they need to establish that. So that's kind of a big thing here. So preventative medicine is becoming the focus of CMS and all the payers. Now you can move this to the forefront of your practice. So preventative medicine is extremely, let's just say, disparate, right? What is it? How does it establish? Well, doctors are in a position now where there's a program called MIPS and MACRA, and it's continuing to evolve, and there's other programs as well, where physicians are being required to actually provide data that their patient population is improving their health. And they've got rewards, and they've also got penalties associated with MIPS and MACRA based off of the actual reporting and the information about the patient. So in other words, if Julie comes in and I establish that there's peripheral artery disease, and I have her continuing to come in to get treatment or to prescribe medication, well, if I don't have proof or some show data-wise that her health is improving, there's going to be penalties to the visits. I'm gonna get less money per visit, and then there's also, if I establish that medical necessity and that data for Julie and show over time that she's improving, well, then there's actually the opportunity to get to be better rewarded when it comes to actual reimbursements. And that's just a really simple explanation of what they're doing at CMS in order to facilitate requirements for physicians to start preventing sickness and to start actually establishing wellness programs that make their patients better. And so our device fits right into that model. The reporting that they get at the physician level allows them to kind of follow through with these things and establish a lot of very powerful things. I'm going to let Mike talk mostly about that on the science piece. But this is an FDA-approved device, and it's established. I'm sorry, I'm like walking around. There's 5 FDA-approved technologies in one. And again, most of the actual testing is covered and reimbursable by most insurance companies. So that's going to be a big deal for these imaging centers, right? Because obviously they establish their entire business on reimbursements available on the technical component for tests. Okay, that's how they run their entire business. Physicians, right? Besides, if they had the device of dealing with the reimbursement and establishing a relationship with the insurers to get paid, their whole business model is about the patient, about the wellness of the patient, the treatment of the patient. Where for an imaging center, it's really straightforward. They operate a test. That test is read. Medical necessity was founded, so that test was established. They send it in for reimbursement. They're done. Really, the rest of the job is up to the physician on how they deal with the patient. So it's an easier conversation to be had with these imaging centers as compared to actually dealing directly with the doctor. So, Mike, if you don't mind, before we kind of start establishing the evaluation for the imaging centers and diagnostic centers themselves, I'd like you to kind of go through the eight different markers that we establish in our test, and then we'll kind of get into some of the disease states that they're associated with. But I'm going to let you take it over for a minute.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it, Beto. Now, am I able to get my screen up so we can kind of go through that with everybody visually?
Yep, I can flip that over to you. One moment here.
Okay. Now, this is a clinical report for the RM3A system. And you'll see here that there are 8 different areas that we focus on. ANSD, cytomotor, endothelial, insulin resistance, cardiometabolic risk, small fiber neuropathy risk, cardiac autonomic neuropathy, and an overall PTG CVD evaluation of basically atherosclerotic activity in the coronary arteries. So when you look at this system overall, and you look at the report, you're going to see very quickly that there's a lot of data here. And it's overwhelming data to a lot of doctors, and that's why we have the program set up that we do with the diagnostic centers, is to eliminate that problem. But you'll see here there's a tremendous number of markers and data, all of them clinically validating individual types of issues with the patients and or diagnosis for the patients in combination. And so we'll just go through quickly here, and you'll see marker after marker, area after area. This gets into your cardiometabolic side here. So you can see a doctor evaluating a report like that without the proper tools is going to take a bit of time to get it evaluated and establish the diagnoses. And those are the things we do to eliminate that time for the doctor, is the program that Beto's put together here. So that's the 7-page report. Okay. Now, we also have a book that we use that very simply identifies and lays out exactly what goes on with a patient when you're dealing with all of the different pages of the report. I'll give you an example. In written form, this is a description in what we call our quick reference guide of all the different areas, and identifies what we're looking for, what's a part of each one of those. And I'm not going to cover that today, but this is available, of course, as Beto will tell you, for everyone to review, study, and get a good grasp on, because it really helps the doctors evaluate and understand, more importantly, how the report is being evaluated by our PEACE program. From there, of course, we go back to that page 1, and page 1 shows all of the individual areas. It's a little bit larger so you can see what it looks like. Then we jump to page 3 for a doctor. When a doctor's first looking at a report, they want to identify potential for diabetes, neuropathy, and cardiometabolic issues. This one page does that very quickly if they understand how to read it and how to evaluate the markers. And we give them a description page that explains the specific markers that we want them to kind of review. This is something that the diagnostic centers will make a part of their system for the doctors to review and when the doctors get the test back from the evaluations and the encounter forms back. And this happens with all of our pages. You'll see we start with page 3, then we go to page 7. Here we're establishing and identifying neuropathy and nerve damage. So diabetes with neuropathy, diabetes with circulatory or neurological issues. And also we are establishing nerve damage itself in this third column with peak C. Overall risk, if you look to the right, to anyone looking at, is over 90%. So it's a very high risk of neuropathy and neuropathy positions. These are the amputation potentials that most people don't see in preventative medicine. And then we continue. Here's the explanation. Here's your 3 markers, what they mean, how to read them, how to identify what they are. And to the left, you'll notice there's additional testing and listed diseases and different kinds of symptoms. These are the things that diagnostic centers love because it tells them to run additional tests or potential new tests to run. And of course, they've got a plethora of those types of tests within their operations, and it enables them to increase the revenue stream they're generating while helping the doctors better identify the client's or the patient's position. And this just continues. Page 6 is an extremely important report when you're dealing with heart rate variability, 10-year potential of heart disease. There's a thing called angiotensin activity, which is a hormone. People don't even really know what it is, but it increases blood pressure, and it also builds up salt in the kidneys. Just one example. And when that's present at a high level, it can drastically affect the person's condition from a cardiovascular standpoint without possibly getting into the arteries or other areas. And so people don't see those things. That's just one example. And then we explain again, this is how you read that page. We go back to insulin resistance. That insulin resistance, the IR you see here, in just simple terms. This carries a 95% specificity and a 92% accuracy when identifying diabetes. It's phenomenal what it does, okay? And it just goes on and on. We go through every single page one at a time, identifying all the different markers, and when we're finished, this doctor has the ability to then diagnose this patient effectively, clear into the areas of heart rate variability and everything else. However, what's missing is an in-depth understanding of all of the individual markers, the training, the education, the time it takes to get a grasp of these things. Doctors are the best detectives in the world, everybody, but they need, as detectives, clues. The diagnostic centers provide them with the clues. They provide them with the information based on all the equipment they have available to those doctors. If they don't do it, the doctors have to purchase their own equipment. They have to try to find the time. It's just a perfect example. Just to run our system for a single practice, it's going to take about 5 to 7 minutes per patient for the doctor even look and evaluate a report. 10 minutes total by the time he's done creating an encounter form and getting it prepared, because that's his responsibility, putting in his chart notes. The technician takes about 15 minutes to run a test. Well, that's 15 more minutes out of that practice's day just to run one more test on this piece of equipment. So they better be running a good number of them to make it worthwhile. In addition to that, once you've completed this, you've got the billing side. You've got to get the adjudication rate at a level that's acceptable. Well, with our system, we get a 98% adjudication rate, because we have the auditing system within PEACE that makes sure that we're using the proper encounter forms, we're using the proper diagnoses based on whether it's Medicare or not Medicare. And this glossary here, that the doctor could take a long time to learn, break them down, switch them over to ICD-10 codes. Instead, it's done for them, and they end up with this type of an encounter form, laying out all the individual diagnoses and other issues, laying out additional potential health risks that can mean more testing. Take a look down below on the left side here, and you'll see those. It's a very in-depth system that's done for them extremely quickly, and then provides that diagnostic center with the ability to better service that doctor in all kinds of different areas, including additional testing that's required for them to get to a final diagnosis as a detective. Clues are everything. So really, that's how our system works. Every one of the markers that are in this report, every single one, are clinically validated markers. And when you saw that glossary, it identifies the accuracy of each, the normal rate levels of each, and what's abnormal and very highly abnormal. So it's an extremely complete system designed to give them backup if they need it. And that's the key. Doctors today don't need to spend 5 to 7 to even 10 minutes per patient more. They need to have the information at their fingertips. They need to be able to evaluate that information, make any changes, edits, or adjustments to it they wish, and get it processed into their processing department while they focus on their diagnosis and the treating of their patients. That diagnostic center is a critical key to that, with MRIs and CTs and all kinds of ultrasounds and all kinds of other products. This one unit right here will give them more information and more knowledge of how to evaluate that patient's condition and get information back to that doctor to give them very quickly the ability to add additional tests and do all the things they need to do to a much better job of creating that elusive product, which is being able to give people quality of life as they age and to overcome their health issues in advance before they become a reality. So really, Beto, that's basically what our system does. Every single marker is clinically validated. 5 separate 510K registrations. Most equipment is lucky to get one. And we cover just about every aspect of the human body. We even identify organ positions and organ issues in some of our more advanced portions of our testing system. So I'll bring it back to you, Beto. If you have any other things you'd like me to add, please don't hesitate to ask.
I do, and that was extremely helpful. So let me go ahead and take this back from you. All right, so if you don't mind, Mike, would you just explain the 8 biomarkers themselves and just a little bit of information about each of those?
Yeah, and again, one of the things that's really good to have, Beto, as you know, what we looked at the beginning, is the definitions of each, because it really does identify those. What we're doing, however,
Sure.
with the autonomic nervous system dysfunction is we're analyzing a series of areas. We're analyzing the potential for diabetes, for neuropathies. We're identifying the potential for heart disease, cardiovascular disease, long-term issues that may not be there yet, like high cholesterol levels and other areas that are all identified within the autonomic nervous system dysfunction area itself. Insulin resistance is self-explanatory. It's basically the potential for diabetes that is so eminent in our country today. And when this is elevated with the accuracy we have at about 95%, you can pretty well count on the fact that the patient's got insulin resistance issues. Now, what causes those could be a number of different things, whether it be fasting, dieting, different types of food, not eating enough, wrong foods, all kinds of things. But the bottom line is this will point it out instantaneously. This test can be run multiple times and be able to see those same results change instantaneously as the body changes. Endothelial dysfunction is simply a product of arterial aging and, of course, other cardiometabolic issues. It's actually swelling of the arterial walls specifically. This identifies those from a number of individual markers that will help the doctor better understand where that patient is from the exterior of the artery, not just the interior. Peripheral artery disease, as an example, is the interior, the plaque, the buildup, the clogging, the aging of the interior of the artery. Then you have atherosclerosis, which is also identified in the area of endothelial dysfunction and also autonomic nervous system dysfunction. And what it does is it identifies the stiffness of the arterial walls. All of those things in combination with a series of other issues like diabetes and other diagnoses that are being established for this client, or may not even have been established yet, are creating endothelial dysfunction, which is the swelling of the arterial walls. Pseudomotor dysfunction simply is analyzing small fiber neuropathy, nerve damage in general, and a combination of both and how they're affected by each of the other 3 areas above, the autonomic nervous system dysfunction, insulin resistance, which contributes dramatically. While it's helping with diabetes, it also contributes to issues in the pseudomotor dysfunction with nerve damage and very, very quickly. It can establish issues with peripheral vascular disease and other circulatory issues on top of everything else. So those are the first four markers. The other markers get into cardiac autonomic neuropathy. It's really identifying what's going on with the arteries and the major, large, small, and medium arteries that are surrounding the heart and around the heart. It's a big area where most people, you can't find or see those quickly enough. And by the time you can identify them, the symptoms, the patient's already in trouble. We want to catch that at the front end. And when we can identify the hidden killers in there, which is cardiac autonomic neuropathy, cardiometabolic risk, cardiovascular disease, the three you see there on the right, you can dramatically change the outcome of a patient's future that they don't even know is coming. It's the number one killer in the country. Our system can immediately, in about 15 minutes, establish and prove with clinical validity that exists and that they don't know it's coming. Gives the doctor all the tools in the world they need to do to treat that patient effectively in advance. Then we finally have, of course, small fiber neuropathy. In simple terms, neuropathy in combination with diabetes and other circulatory issues causes amputations, causes all kinds of major issues with patients they don't even know is coming until it's too late. By the time you're hurting, by the time your feet are numb and you're tingling and are cold, and you've already gone beyond where you should be, because once you get there, so often it's almost impossible to cure this disease. Instead, you must manage it. And the only way you can manage it is with medications and with stimulation of the muscle groups to try to push circulation through the body. And if you damage the nerves, it's almost impossible to repair them. All you can do is eliminate the symptoms if it gets beyond the initial stages. So that's really what these areas are designed to do, Beto.
All right. Thank you so much for covering that. So everybody, let's go ahead and go to our next slide here and just give some brief here. So this device allows us to get the early detection for doctors to more effectively identify symptoms and disease complications in support of preventative treatment plans and managing risk for heart attack, heart rate variability issues, cardiac output to body surface area, abnormal LDL cholesterol levels, insulin resistance, diabetes with complications, physical and mental stress and fatigue, stroke. I always say that one funny. Say that for me, Mike?
Angiotensin activity?
Yeah.
That's when you're talking about.
Yeah, remember we had so much trouble on that when we were doing our recording before. I couldn't say that word. But peripheral vascular disease, hyperhidrosis and hypohidrosis, impaired glucose intolerance, nerve damage, guys. Nerve damage is just vastly involved in so many things. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. Obesity, and establishes medical necessity for additional in-depth patient testing. So this is an ANS device. So in other words, it's testing the autonomic nervous system, but it's important to understand how it's establishing that to a degree. And Mike could go probably deeper on the science side of this. We don't necessarily need to establish that in this moment. But it's actually doing readings in the micro and macrovascular system. Okay, it's working directly with pulse information that's working through the vascular system itself. And the reason it's an autonomic nervous system program is because at the capillary level, we're called the microcirculation system. The identification of what's happening in the capillaries in association with the response of the nervous system tells us a lot of information. For example, if there's the test that's done for the foot will bring up a readout that there's not good circulation going on between the capillaries and the nervous system, and that indication could mean a lot of problems everywhere because our bodies are pressurized, right? We have a blood pressure. And if we're having trouble getting blood into the capillary systems that interact directly with the autonomic nervous system in our feet, then it's very likely that we may be having the same trouble at the same level in our kidneys, in our liver, all right, in other organs that are in our body. In other words, if there's a pressure problem in the blood system somewhere in the microcirculation system, especially, it's going to establish that those nerve problems may be prevalent everywhere, or at least other places, like, for example, your kidneys, which could be a very dangerous thing for the body. And so that's just something to kind of understand, is this is an ANS device for autonomic nervous system testing, but it's done through the macro and the microvascular system, and the relationship between the actual the pulse data that comes in from testing and how those systems are actually working together. And that's where a lot of the data comes from. So anyways, I just wanted to mention that. Mike, I don't know if you have anything to add to that on the technology side that may give these guys a little bit more measure of how the technology works.
Well, Beto, it's extremely important to understand how the system functions, but the history behind it is so in depth that you must understand, to get 5 separate 510K registrations to identify these markers to the level they do, and every one of them is validated with normality rates, percentages of accuracy, etc. You've got to have a lot of research and a lot of history. In simple terms, when somebody asks you the science behind this product, we can provide them with a plethora of information, just books of information that they can review and read at their leisure if they wish to, that identifies why this equipment is considered so accurate and so dependable. So it's better to understand the systems themselves and the items they're identifying. This page right here tells the whole story. 8 to 9 out of every 10 patients that walk into a doctor's office are dealing with one of these issues nowadays. 8 to 9 out of 10. And the doctors don't realize that, because most patients have symptoms that they're dealing with right now, and some of it could even be just simply stress and other issues, or obesity. They don't realize that hidden below all that is these kinds of things that are causing it from the backside. Preventative medicine is the key. Diagnostic centers are making a massive living, doing extremely well nationwide by providing the services for all of these different types of tests to enable doctors today to do just that, improve quality of life through preventative medicine. So remember, you never have to worry about somebody saying, well, show me all the studies, show me all the research. It's there. Anytime they ask, it can be popped out the door to them instantaneously in books of information they can observe. That's what the FDA registrations are all about. I hope, Beto, that adds a little bit to this. And if you focus right here on this page, this is what will turn a doctor on. I mean, I can get all this. I don't run a test. I get all of this. I get all this additional information. I don't have to do anything. I just have to review it. And now I can establish the diagnosis I want, add additional testing, go to work on the patient, and build this information out for my treatments and my work with the patient, and I don't have to do all that myself. That's what this system does. And that's what the diagnostic centers do every day. All right, back to you, buddy.
All right, thank you, Mike. It's always a brilliant opportunity to hear you talk. So that's great. All right, guys. So in other words, very lucrative test for the physician to be able to work directly with the diagnostic center in this model, because of all of the information they receive on the patients and the diagnosis path that they can take them down, where they may not have been able to establish that information initially. Okay, so a lot of these symptoms that are here, that are found by the test, see, it's not just the patient not realizing that there's issues. It's that when a doctor is actually doing a diagnosis, a lot of times they're very focused on what that diagnosis may mean overall for the patient in the exact problem that they've identified. In other words, it's symptomatic. They come in, they're sick, they've got information about why they're sick because it's now become evident that they are, and then they take an actual wellness path towards correcting that and getting medications associated with it. But they're not looking at the asymptomatic problems that may be happening, right? They don't see a lot of the problems that may be happening. It's not evident in the activity actions of the patient and the dialogue between the patient and the doctor. They don't know what it is because the patient's not feeling or experiencing enough of those symptoms. And so they're asymptomatic. And so then they end up coming into their doctor's offices after, for example, they had a heart attack or after they started feeling terrible because the food they'd been eating is finally starting to make them sick enough that they could be definitely identified as diabetic or on their way to becoming diabetic and insulin resistant. And so the reality is probably 80% or more, probably more, of problems happening within a patient population moving their way towards chronic are asymptomatic. They are not evident. And we can catch that physical reality behind some of the earliest disease states by having this device ran. Okay, it can save lives on a consistent basis and give the doctors their tools to treat the patients. Okay, so it's definitely a test they're going to want. Okay, so moving on here, everybody. All right, this is just some screenshots. Mike was just kind of showing that just a minute ago, but this is just in your PowerPoint to kind of give the Diagnostic Center an idea of the value of the actual data that's coming to the physician. Now, when we get on the discovery call, we're definitely going to be able to talk to them more specifically about them. We'll talk about discovery calls here in just a moment, too. Okay, so what comes right along with this, we've talked about this a little bit and why this is probably not something even a competitor can touch us on is because of our P software, the patient encounter compilation and execution software. Okay, this has evolved. We work on this on a consistent daily basis. I have an entire engineering team that does nothing but work on this program. Mike works directly with them, and we have our initial Diagnostic Center program in place. So let's just cover a few of these things. So our proprietary PEACE virtual platform gives you and your referring doctors instant access to test results. Number one, if a test is ran, it's uploaded into our system. It's immediately available to that doctor. So physicians log in and they have the advantage. They have physicians log in and report access from a virtual back office. The practice calendar is set up for each physician to schedule their patients to come in for the test. So here's how simple this is. A doctor comes and wants to be part of the network, okay? Well, all they do is they send them the actual sign-up page that we have for the physician's practice, and the physician's practice fills it out. Once that's been filled out, then they download an icon directly to their desktop that goes straight to our calendar, okay? So now the doctor practice has it. They want the test. The Diagnostic Center is offering them the science. They just establish a back office. Now, listen, nobody has what I just said. Many of you have logged into software. You've got accounts with Facebook and other places, and so you know what logging into a system is. But no one in this industry has what I just explained to you, and that's the simplest side of what we're offering. Okay, they basically sign up. They get sent an email. That email puts an icon right there on their desktop. They just copy it over. They click that icon, and it goes straight to scheduling for the physician's practice. The scheduling itself is tied to the MedTech schedule that they have at the Diagnostic Center. So the MedTech puts their schedule in, and then the 100 to 300 practices or more in some cases of doctors that sign up to get the science, the good medicine of this test, are able to come in and do it directly right there on the calendar. It interacts in real time with the MedTech's calendar. And so we've got a fully managed referral program that allows the physician's practice to do that. Now, I want to explain why that's such an advantage for any of you that have spent some time in a doctor's office. When a doctor gives you a referral card and says, go see this Diagnostic Center or go see this imaging center, like what me and my wife just dealt with getting the imaging done for our daughter, the reality behind that is it's better for the physician's practice to know when you're coming back, okay, to be able to schedule you to come back to see them. But when they give you a referral, you're kind of stuck with not knowing exactly when you plan to call. You call in, they don't know what the schedule is. They say they can't get you until next Saturday. Okay, there's all of these things that happen at the Diagnostic Center that you're going in to get your imaging for, which means the doctor's practice has to leave you in limbo. They cannot schedule that next appointment with you for you to come back after it's been done, after the doctor's had time to actually establish the valuation of the data. Okay, so this is how the industry's set up right now. You guys have done it yourself. You've walked into a practice. You've been given a referral card. You've gone somewhere else. You've gotten something done, and the laboratory, an imaging center, whatever it might have been, and then you call your doctor's office back and say you finally did your thing, that you should have the test results, or of course the center finally sends it over to the doctor's practice and they have to call you. Well, listen to how simple this is. I'm sitting with a patient and I'm seeing that there's symptoms that patient has that definitely qualify for an opportunity medical necessity for this test. I say, stop by the front desk. Okay, we need you to go into ABC imaging and do an A&S test. And so they walk up to the front counter, says yes, and the person at the front counter just pops open our calendar and says, well, they can get you in Wednesday. Okay, if there's an opening, I can see it right here. They can get you in Wednesday at 1. She just enters that patient in, saves it. That automatically goes onto the MedTech schedule. They didn't even have to call the center to do that second step and deal with all that time wasted at the front counter there. It's just scheduled in by one of the qualified physicians that are allowed to send a patient. Okay, so boom, they actually put in the actual patient information, they save it, and they can keep the patient there and say, well, since you're actually going to be going in there to do that Wednesday, what I'd like to do is just go ahead and have a follow-up on Friday. Let's schedule that right now too. So now I'm leaving my doctor's practice, not with a referral card, but with an established appointment with the imaging center and an established appointment of when I'm coming back for the doctor review. Okay, you may not think what I just said is a big deal, but there is a lot of wasted administration costs and operator error, meaning that the patient just didn't go see the imaging center, and then suddenly the practice calls back and says, well, why didn't you follow that referral and figure it out? And they're like, oh man, I forgot, I got busy with groceries and kids and life. Right? So think about how much wasted time's right there. We just cleaned that up slick. Nobody else offers that in our industry. Nobody else gives them that opportunity to send out an actual sign-in for their doctors. Now, not in other venues. There are definitely back offices for a lot of stuff, but not in this industry. We've established the first. And so then what happens, the patient comes in, report's actually generated, it's uploaded into our software by the technician, and immediately the results and the actual diagnostic potential path for both the physician as well as the billing model for the diagnostic center is all established. Doctor can log in, they can download that report, they can actually look directly at the encounter form, which checkmarks some of the more important actual diagnoses that they're able to reimburse for, but it also tells the doctor more specifically what the problems are with that patient. Very clean format. And so it's a huge valuation. Doctor logs in, looks at the report, okay, and any patient he sends will have that virtual report right there in his back office. He can get it anytime he needs to. And there isn't a company that's established that process in the virtual space in the A&S industry anyway. It's just us, okay? So the doctor actually gets the calendar set up in their office. Very, very simple to do. It's just sent to them by the imaging center. If they can give us a list of all their doctors, we can actually send out an email to every single one of them. They just click on a button, they go to a page, they sign up, they're in, they establish what they have. So MedTech login, scheduling management, and testing management. So obviously the MedTechs all have their own back office as well. And an encounter form algorithm and creation for high accuracy and reimbursement allowances. And so you heard Mike talk about us adjudicating currently at 98%. Okay, for those of you that are coming from some of my other organizations where I've worked in this industry, you know that's really good. One of the biggest issues in the A&S industry is the viability of the billing company that's actually billing on the actual test, because it's somewhat of an unknown for many billing companies. It's not a common billing profile, and you have to be very, very high in expertise. Okay, so Mike and Chris on this call, as well as our other partner Trip, are extremely high in expertise. We understand the billing profile per state, city, borough. We change the profile and the algorithms as the industry changes any policy. All right, so we've established an actual methodology and data management, okay, for that imaging center where their encounter forms that they send in to get reimbursed are going to be very accurate. Okay, and when it comes to billing and getting reimbursed, accuracy is everything. Okay, if you're not accurate for whatever reason, they don't like one thing about the way you've established your medical necessity, your notes are off, the insurance company just simply won't actually reimburse. A lot of times they don't even tell you why. Okay, so that can be a huge frustration on that side of the industry. We've set it up for the imaging center so that when that actual report's uploaded, we're establishing through our algorithms themselves the diagnosis that is going into the encounter form to be sent for adjudication. They have to review it, they have to sign it, because it's them that establishes that encounter form. But we've done so much of the work for them, they don't have to go through all that esoteric understanding of how it's built, or go and research the CPT codes deeply to make sure they establish medical necessity properly in order to qualify for them. It comes down to the fact that our algorithms will do that for them. It's part of the service that we offer. Okay, so that's part of what the software piece does for the actual the imaging center, is it manages high adjudication rates on their encounter forms. It automatically populates encounter forms so that they don't have to sit down and try to establish that themselves. Kind of the old pen and pencil method for that in a lot of ways. And the accuracy rate is really high. So when they do the reimbursement, they send it into insurance, they're going to get paid. Okay, they're going to get paid. So that may become a conversation with some of these imaging centers, is the billing profile. Now, how well does it bill? What do you know about the billing? That is a reason to push them into a discovery call. Right now, what I want you guys doing more than anything else on this inlay, and I'm going to make sure that you guys understand the discovery call setup, but most of you already do, but we're just going to go through that again before we're done on this call. The first thing you want to do, if you can, once you've established interest, right? Remember, my biggest thing is interest and understanding. They have to be interested, and they have to at least understand why we're getting on the call. Those are my two most important things for establishing the discovery call. So we're gonna go through those metrics. So I guess I probably shouldn't really break into that too much right at the moment. That's where we're gonna kind of get to the pitch and everything else. But the platform, guys, the platform is the big sticking point. Okay, that doesn't exist. We made it. We built it from scratch. Okay, from floor up. This is proprietarily built software by the Beto Paredes family of companies with the intellectual property of AWS. Okay, this is an incredible opportunity for you guys to get involved in something that's going to be a one-stop opportunity. No competitors are going to get in this space. We'll be selling to imaging centers in 6 months, in 18 months, and maybe someone will try to see how they can catch up to us, but it's going to be unlikely, okay, because they just don't have the platform. And Mike, anything else you want to add to the platform dialogue at all?
Well, the biggest thing about the platform and this dialogue of information is it provides every aspect of what we do with data. And data is the most important thing that a doctor has to protect themselves, and with billing and insurance reimbursements to all kinds of other areas, including background for the patient. And it enables them to be more empowered to help the patient quicker and improve their quality of care. That's really what this is all about. And it's fast. I mean, you take the processes we discussed earlier, Beto, where you're spending 10 minutes for the doctor, whether they find that time to reevaluate the report. What person in the office is going to take 15 minutes out of the day to run a series of tests? We do that for them too. And then how is the billing department going to know for sure exactly what these markers are going to do from diagnosis? Because all they do is take the information provided by them. And then getting a 98% adjudication rate is very difficult for most doctors to get, because most of their billing groups don't have the information necessary in many cases to back things up and fill in additional information. It's just, this is the most robust product ever developed since this industry began clear back in 2002, 2003. There's been nothing like it. And that's why this is dominating and will dominate the diagnostic testing facility area. It's just that simple. It's robust. It's powerful. It's accurate. It's protective. There's so many adjectives to define what this simple program can accomplish for everybody concerned with, including the patient.
Thank you, Mike. And Chris, you work on the billing on a consistent basis. Can you talk a little bit about how important it is to have these algorithms established the way they are, just based on your experience in the billing industry and dealing with this billing profile? Chris, do you have audio? Give him just a second there, guys.
Beto, while you're trying to grab Chris, while you're trying to grab Chris, I'll just explain a couple of just initial things for them, just to keep them up to date. Basically, adjudication. We talked about adjudication. Now, Chris is going to identify how all this works. Adjudication is critical. You can bill $100,000, $200,000, but if you've only got a 80 or 90% adjudication rate, you're only going to see 80 or 90% of that, only if you accurately process the claims effectively, and you got the right diagnosis for the patient. However, how that diagnosis is established is based on 7 different major areas in the country that are subcontractors for the Medicare group, and then in combination with Medicare and all the other commercial carriers. Each area has a different way of addressing each and every diagnosis. It's really that simple. And if you don't know those areas, and you don't know what particular codes are not Medicare billable, whereas they are commercially billable, you can make a lot of mistakes. Many times, the Medicare and the other groups, they actually accept those mistakes. They don't see for sure what happened, and they pay on it. What that does is provides a small risk to the doctor of billing incorrectly and possibilities for clawbacks and other things. But more importantly, it reduces the adjudication rate. And that means if I bill $1,000, and it's in the allowables, which is what they pay on, if I'm getting all of that, or the majority of it, I'm going to have a 98% success rate. So if the net is $365 for a region, in 98% of the time, that's what I'm going to get. If it's $400 for Aetna or one of the other groups, that's what I'm going to get. What Chris's group does within the PEACE program and the logarithms they've established is what creates that accuracy. And it's invaluable to a doctor and their staff. No more guesswork, no more borrowing money from the system in hopes that you don't have to pay it back if there's a clawback because something got billed that shouldn't have gotten billed. These are all things that we eliminate with PEACE and with the other systems we have. So if you think about it, everybody, you got time management. You've got the ability to add a whole new business to each practice within a diagnostic center's area, a whole new business where they can go out and identify all kinds of additional issues that they couldn't identify before. They had to do it manually and then go to the diagnostic centers and guess what tests they want. Instead, now this whole new industry that they would probably normally spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to establish with personnel and facilities and all kinds of other things, just to get maybe a 20 or a 25% net profit. It's all done for them. And with our system, they make so much more than that. And more importantly, they provide the best quality of care for patients you could possibly get. So that's really what separates us. And PEACE, long time coming. PEACE is the only one of its kind out there, as Beto explained. And the speed at which we're able to get information into that doctor's hands is unheard of in this industry. Nowhere can you do an evaluation, do a series of tests, and literally immediately have the data, the information, and the research back in that doctor's hands for them to review. It's nothing like it. So I'm not sure who else is joining. If Beto, are you back yet?
Oh, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. I was just chatting with Chris over text. And Chris, can you get audio now?
No.
Jeez. Chris, can you hear us?
There he is.
There we go. Yes, I can.
There he is.
All
okay,
right.
Chris, if you don't mind, no problem. Yeah, we're just talking about billing and the algorithms that we've written. And I know that a good portion of that's established through a dialogue with you and Mike, and you deal with this on a daily basis. So can you just kind of talk about the importance a little bit of having our algorithms there and available for the encounter form development, and why that's a big deal across the country?
Yeah. So when it comes down to PEACE and the software and the encounter form, we've been able to go in and we've been able to take the LCDs for the codes that we bill out, and we've been able to create algorithms that will directly associate CPT to ICD-10. So the important thing is knowing your landscape. There's a lot of places that may have a lot of Medicare, they may have a lot of Medicaid, they may have a lot of private insurance. So what you have to be able to do is be able to effectively diagnose what type of insurance it is, what type of patient it is, and then look at the code sets itself and the associated ICD-10, the diagnosis codes, and appropriately allocate them to the right CPT codes for appropriate adjudication. So this has revolutionized, in my opinion, the ANS market. Before, as Michael was telling you, in Betos as well, is that the doctors would have to go through, several pages to identify the markers and to identify a diagnosis. Once again, as Michael indicated, we've taken the guesswork out on the doctor's end, and we created an encounter form that is populated within minutes after the encounter. And at the same time, too, it provides additional tests that can be generated from that visit as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for chiming in on that. So, guys, that's just giving you a little bit of the valuation of why the platform, which is proprietary to us, is such a big deal. Okay, we have one of the top devices in software platforms in the ANS scoring and testing industry, just like some of the other distributors may have, but none of them actually have this platform. They will not be able to compete with us, and they're not selling to our audience. Okay, no one has figured out how to approach imaging centers and diagnostic centers because you have to have these kinds of tools available to them in order for it to be facilitated properly. Not only that, but even with some of the other testing that they do for physicians, we've got a better way of managing the appointments directly with the physician's offices, like I explained before. So it's a pretty big deal. When we do the discovery calls, again, we're going to talk about that process in a little bit. It's just highly valuable for you guys to understand that's going to be a hit for the diagnostic centers. Being able to have those algorithms score that billing properly and schedule their patients as effectively as they have, and knowing that the physicians have instant access to data, it's going to be a big deal. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. All right, so physician taxonomies that will qualify for the services. So many of the diagnostic centers and imaging centers are working very specifically with these kinds of doctors as well as everybody else. I mean, they service almost every kind there is. But there's going to be a large number of these types of doctors in their referral network. So if they've got 200 doctors in their referral network, maybe 50%, 70% of them are going to fall within these taxonomies. All right, they're going to be working with family practice, general practice, primary care, cardiology, internal medicine, pain management, endocrinology. All of these are going to be types of doctors that they're working directly with. And just think about the OBGYNs. Right. So so the reality is they're going to get very excited about the fact that even their current network is going to be very valuable to them. But the opportunity for them has just grown exponentially because now they can get a hold of everyone else that's not in their referral network. They may be working directly with a large hospital imaging center or another private practice imaging center. And they can offer this opportunity to those physicians, and so it becomes a marketing tool for them as well. So if they don't have a large enough audience or the audience that they'd like to have because they're aware of how many of these taxonomy doctors are in their area, this is going to give them the opportunity to also reach out to other physician practices that they're not currently working with that are within these taxonomies and start doing business with them directly because nobody's offering these test results. Right, that's good science. When the physician that's not working with an imaging center gets the packet from them, they get the actual report that you guys saw. For any of you that were selling this when we were going direct to physician, it's that packet, right? They get the report. They get why it's good medicine. They get information on how the entire thing is going to help their practice. And that's just an easy thing for a practice to say, well, hey, imaging center ABC, I would love these reports. And I click on a link, I sign up as a physician's practice, and I could be sending referrals that day. Okay, how awesome is that? So their current population of practices could be huge, right? Out of the 2,000 that are in Pueblo Imaging's network, a good portion of those, at least 50%, fall within these taxonomies. right? He's going to need 15 devices, right? He's going to need them because he's going to have them burning their wheels off, and one of the biggest reasons is going to be the biggest breadwinner in his whole company. Okay, this could very much be the largest amount of income for an imaging center, our program, even over the MRI. We're going to talk about that too, and that's also in this presentation, so we'll get to that. Alrighty, so establishing medical necessity for this test from your center. This patient population will be your largest. Okay, this is an important one. If someone's getting scheduled for an MRI, there's going to be specificity in diagnosis that requires the ordering of that test. And there's a number of reasons why people would need to get an MRI, but they're usually fairly deep state diagnoses that are tied to very specific kinds of issues. So there's a smaller list of opportunities, let's just say, for any of the practices they're working with as far as that kind of imaging is concerned. And the MRI machine is usually the central imaging device for an imaging center. So if they're smaller, they may just have an MRI machine and that's what they have, right? But the reality is the medical necessity that's established in order to take a patient and send them in, as Mike was saying, 8 to 9 out of 10 of a doctor's patient population is going to have some symptoms that will allow them to actually mark medical necessity and send that patient in for testing. So this is the symptom checklist that we use that is also something that's kind of added when they add their patient. So when they add the patient to the calendar, they'll actually check off the symptoms that are associated with what establishes medical necessity to order the test. But look at the number of symptoms that potentially lead to medical necessity for our device. Okay, so even within his own referral network or their own referral network, okay, there's going to be a much larger demand for this test because of the opportunity within medical necessity that there is in order to have this test ran, in order to have it adjudicated. Okay, so if they're a struggling imaging center, let's just say that they're kind of going through growth pains, they got 100 doctors in their network, they hired a couple more radiologists, but they're just not getting as many tests actually ran as they can. They're marketing. They're trying to find other practices that need this service from them. Well, they establish our program, get it marketed out to their current physicians' practices, and it'll be almost a guarantee that even within their own personal network, there will be a 300 to 400% higher return rate on the number of potential patients that are coming in to get this test done. So this patient population will be your largest. It is easy to tell them that. Okay, so when you're in there speaking with them about the opportunity, that's one of the things that you really want to keep in mind is, even in your current referral network, this will be your largest patient population of tests being ordered. Okay, so this is a very powerful slide. This is one you want to let them sit with for a minute. You don't want to go into every single detail that's on here and act like a doctor, okay? You may know some things about some of the stuff that's listed on all of these slides, but the fact of the matter is, if I've got any of these symptoms or combination of these symptoms, I can establish medical necessity to have this scan ran. Okay, so the opportunities here are so much larger for the potential of adjudication of this actual test. Okay, so this will be a powerful slide. Go ahead.
Just call Shannon. Call Shannon to stop it.
Hey, Mike, you've got a bad connection. All right, Mike, I don't know if Mike's able to talk. He was trying to say something. So, Mike, if you reestablish your connection, just let me know here. So, but yeah, so this is incredibly fortuitous for the imaging center to be able to offer this opportunity. Oh, you're fine.
My apologies, buddy. It's just for some reason the system just broke up. So I apologize. So you continue. Well, it wasn't as important as what you're talking about now. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Well, if you have anything to say about it, I'm more than happy to let you talk. So in reading this again, the symptoms that lead to medical necessity for running the RM3A test is vast. Okay, guaranteed to give you access to the largest patient population through your current physicians network. This will outperform any other program you have at your diagnostic center. Okay, truth. It's true. Okay, why? Is because of the vast opportunity for establishing medical necessity to order the test, as you guys can see here. So, Mike, was there anything that you wanted to add to that before I move on? And his phone has gone again. Anyways, guys, I think you understand it.
Things having trouble, but yeah, I do. The symptom checklist isn't a matter of getting as many of these particular things, 3, 4, 5, 6. One symptom, just one symptom on that list can identify a patient to run this test. It doesn't take much of anything to establish that need because they cover so much area in each one of the different categories. So it's very, very important that you understand that this symptom checklist should be given to every single patient by every single doctor every time that patient comes in. By doing that, the diagnostic testing facility has a substantially increased potential for being able to identify more tests to be run within their system. That's really important. The RM3A test, they run it initially, pre and post treatment. Depending on whether there's additional symptoms or not that begin to show up, you may be able to run it additional times during each year based on potential new diagnoses. However, the real value of this lies very specifically in the fact that you can, in addition to that, you can identify through an additional test that the billing center or the diagnostic facility, or through the symptom checklist, I should say, additional tests to be run off of the RM3A, even if the diagnostic center in some rare cases doesn't get reimbursed for running that test. They can pick up 3 or 4 new tests based on those symptoms just from running the test again to evaluate the change in the patient's condition. Does that make sense, Beto?
Absolutely does. So what he's saying, guys, is there's 130 biomarkers that this test actually runs for. But in the United States, the adjudication is limited to a certain CPT codes based off of diagnoses that they will reimburse for. So this thing is vastly more powerful than even what's reimbursable. But if there are other symptoms that are identified through our tests, it could lead to all kinds of other tests that the diagnostic center can suggest to the physician to have those ordered, to have established medical necessity because we did have the scan, it is established, it is there, and have that physician order additional tests and have additional tests ran off of other devices, CAT scans, Dopplers, okay, and potentially even right into their big daddy, which is the MRI. Okay, so that's a big thing for us to establish, if I can, in the best way, is that this is a tool for them. And I've got a slide for that, so maybe we can talk even a little bit more about that when I hit that slide. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about a comparison, all right? We're kind of digging a little bit more now into the diagnostic center itself. And there's actually some materials that we're going to be reviewing here in a minute about what a diagnostic center is, what kinds of tests they run, what kind of professionals they have. You guys need to understand the industry well, and so I provided those materials. But this is a comparison that was put together by Chris, and I think Chris and Mike actually worked on this together, but it's a comparison of the return on investment and the costs associated in comparison with the biggest test that they have. Okay, now remember, we just established that even though that's a fact, there is quite a bit more that can be done based off that symptom checklist. They'll have a lot more patients coming in, but this is just a straight cross comparison. So the square footage that's needed for an MRI is 490. For the RM3A is 200. The device cost is $450,000 for a standard MRI. Okay, it's $60,000 for our device. Okay, the technician to run an MRI, which obviously has to be a radiologist, is an average of $60,000 a year. Our test requires 2 technicians, and so that totals $62,400. And these are non-credentialed technicians, because as long as you have a vascular radiologist at your center, which they do, then they qualify for an attending physician, and they don't have to have a qualified professional. They can have just regular technicians come in and operate that test. So service contract, we have none they have at least $100,000 a year that they're paying on the service contract for that MRI. Excuse me. The physicist required is an average of about 11,250 for the MRI. We have nothing at that level. So the average reimbursement, okay, 568, right? That's the average reimbursement for an MRI. It's a nice, big, established amount of money. That's one of the reasons why they open their imaging centers, to get that dollar. For us, it's 378. Okay, that's per test. But the biggest difference is that, well, I'd say there's three stages to that biggest difference. But the average the estimated average test per hour is 1 per MRI and 2 for the RM3A. Okay, so we can pretty much do 2 for 1 on one device in a given day. Now, why is that important? Well, because we're going to have a much larger patient population ordering our test anyways. So when they do a comparison of the MRIs they're doing now, they're just simply going to have a larger population interested in ours. And so doing a 2 to 1 in the operating model, meaning that is that actually possible, is extremely easy to explain. All right, so on a 70-hour week, okay, which a lot of these imaging centers, we kind of base some of this information a little bit on Pueblo, like again, we'll kind of let Chris get into some of those things. They're looking at $39,760 on their MRI, $52,920 on the RM3A. Okay, it's a $13,160 difference. Now, that difference is important because they're going to make just about as much as their MRI because of the relationship they have with us. Okay, we're going to talk about that in just a minute too. So that's important. Okay, this is the comparison of the RM3A specifically to their most lucrative and most cared for device in their imaging center, which is the MRI. And we compete. We not only compete, but we in some ways beat it. And if you want to think about this one for just a minute, don't get too twinkle toes about it. $120,000, they have 2 of our devices. You do the math. Okay, $120,000, and they're still less than half of the cost of an MRI machine. Okay, 4 of our devices will get right around the same price. Imagine the potential income difference between our program and their most established standardized system around the same pricing. Okay, and again, establishing that patient population, 8 to 9 out of 10 people in a doctor's practice have one of those symptoms on that symptom checklist somewhere, and they can order the test. Okay, it's a much larger audience, even through their current referral network. Okay, so this is a real fun slide to be able to share with them, just to kind of give them price comparison to something that they understand really well. And of course, in your documentation, when I go through materials, there's a lot more about the establishment of costs for an imaging center. Okay, because these guys are very cost focused, very cost aware. Okay, because everything they do is really spreadsheet focused. They've got this machine, these are the med techs, and how much they cost. If we do X number of tests a day, X number of tests a week, a month, this is what our ROI is. So even more than a physician's practice, especially, these guys are more kind of dealing with that operation from that perspective. They're very organized. They understand what their costs are. Okay, and so they're going to like this slide,
Beto,
and this is a great one to share. Yes.
Beto, can I add some information, please?
Absolutely, please do.
Okay, so the reason why this slide, once again, is so important, when you're talking about an MRI, you're talking about a difference in square foot. So this is kind of a mean for 490 square feet. And the MRI 3T scanner that I have up to 450, that's for a used piece of device. A brand new 3T MRI, when you're doing neuro or you're doing spinal, they're about 1.5 million. So please keep that in mind. This is a used piece of equipment. But an MRI requires 4 zones. You have to go through 3 zones in order to get to the MRI. So when you're looking at per square foot, this is actually 1 patient per hour, and there's multiple scans. But the 568, that's probably what they're going to get reimbursed per hour. It all depends on the type of insurance, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, whatever that may be. But if you look at the difference in the overhead, and we didn't include, the electricity or things like that, they're included for an MRI just to operate. You're looking here at just the gross of 568. You got to subtract out the physicist, the service contract, everything else that comes with it, and the maintenance of the equipment and so forth and so on. So when you look at the 568, again, this is an average. This is a gross. This is not net. But when you look at our 378, Really, the only overhead that we have is that within that 200 feet, we don't need to have a special zone. All we need to have is just like a doctor's office, 10 by 10, 8 by 10, whatever that may be. So at the end of the day, when you start really looking at the 13,000 in additional income, it's going to be probably much greater because once again, these are gross figures.
Thank you.
That's why I wanted to add that.
Thank you. So just to keep it brief, what we're saying there is that operating an MRI is expensive. Okay, not only from the position of purchasing and flooring it properly, there's a lot to that, but the cost of the actual technician in the process is just greater. There's more involved. Okay, so this will increase other testing opportunities. Mike was talking about this. Okay, here are some examples of additional diagnostic tests that the RM3A results can lead to. If you are performing these other tests in your center, this is a huge advantage for pre-screened medical necessity. So, Mike, would you go ahead and explain what we have here?
Yeah, just bear with me just a minute. I'm having a little bit of trouble with the system, so hold on. All right, there we go. Finally back up. Sorry, it kind of dropped off. All right, so when you look at these individual particular markers that are on each of these individual pages, like up above at the top here, the RM3A reporting marker, the PTG, TP, PTG, VLFI, and IR, those three markers really help to give potential of prediabetes or diabetes. And when you do that, of course, it creates new testing, things like A1C testing or more advanced glucose and insulin resistance testing. It can actually start identifying additional markers like ESNRO, ESRL, and or peak C down there on the left-hand side, third item down. And that particular group there is small fiber neuropathy. If the person's got diabetes or prediabetes, this is listed in those two columns above, and they have small fiber neuropathy in essence, now you're dealing with diabetes and neuropathy, and there's additional testing there that can be done. Things like ultrasounds, things like nerve conduction studies, CT with contrast and without contrast. Those are the kinds of things that these diagnostic centers just absolutely love. They get this test, they get reimbursed for this test, and it immediately provides medical necessity, because most of the tests you see here, to run them, they must have a reason to run them. They need to be able to get approval to run, especially a CT. They've got to be given permission to run that. And when they do, this system gives them that knowledge and information to get that permission from the carriers to run this particular test. So that's how this whole thing works. And there's only a few small examples here as you scroll down a little bit of all the different, there's literally another 20 some odd items that are added to this list. And we just put a few down here for identification. Things like at the bottom where you got PTG, CVD. Well, what is that? And could you scroll down just a little bit for me, Beto?
This is actually just on the slide, and so the rest of the information
so this is
will
all
be in
we
a handout for these guys. Yeah, just for the first slide.
The last item on there. Yeah. The first item is basically the last item on this page, PTG CVD. That's an extremely important marker because it identifies atherosclerotic activity of the coronary artery. Most people don't find that or see that, and it definitely leads to a lot of additional testing. Now, the ABI and the Doppler, which is a part of our system already, is one of the initial tests you'll do when you identify this particular issue, PTG CVD. But in addition to that, they may run stress testing, which is an extremely good pain particular code. They may run Again, ultrasound, CT could be a combination of other things to identify what's going on with those coronary arteries. Are they dealing with, endothelial dysfunction, where the swelling, the inflammation? And if so, what's causing it? Is it the atherosclerotic activity of the coronary artery? In other words, the wall stiffening, or is it the interior where it's clogging and now not getting that circulation through the artery like it's supposed to? So that's basically what we do, and this is. We break this down in that handout, and for your benefit, for the doctor, and more importantly, the diagnostic center to see all of those additional tests based on each of these individual groups of markers. And this is what you'll see off the report. So I guess that's the best way in simple terms, without getting highly complex, Beto, to explain it. And then there's additional testing. We talked about it earlier. There are things that don't have diagnostic codes. There are things like LDL cholesterol levels, which is AI-PTG is the marker for that. There is things like cardio output to body surface area, abnormal diastolic or systolic blood pressure based on the stand-up portion of the test at the end, which varies the altitude of the patient from a sitting position to a standing position. Then there's the Valsalva maneuver, which is, again, you can't bill it, but it will identify the change in the blood from the diastolic and systolic area as a result of plugging the nose, holding the breath for 15 seconds, and releasing while applying pressure. That's called the Valsalva maneuver. These are all things that don't have ICD-10 codes, but they definitely lead to substantially additional testing in the individual diagnostic centers, depending on which one they are. So I guess that's the best way I can explain that, Beto. If you think there's something more you'd like me to add, please don't hesitate.
Well, I'm going to add a couple things. So first of all of the diagnoses that he's figured out for the way this works in additional testing will be on a flyer you guys can share. I don't have that one designed. I'll have it designed by tomorrow. But here's the biggest thing. This is where I hope I can get you sales guys jacked out of your mind for a minute. Okay. I already showed you that our device has a much larger patient population available through their physician network that's currently established. Okay. We already proved that based off of the cost factor between an MRI, let's say, or used one even, and our RM3A device, that it's a lot less money to actually get involved in it. It doesn't take as much management in order to facilitate the test. Okay, so there's operating advantages and there's financial advantages to even purchasing this for their diagnostic center. But here's the big thing that we're trying to establish in your minds right now. This is the only test they have or will have in the diagnostic center that can lead to medical necessity on so many other opportunities in their diagnostic path. Okay, that's a big hitter. Okay, so we're already beating to a degree their best device, and now we're giving them information, data that they need to establish medical necessity for a variety of other things they may offer in the diagnostic center, right? And what this does is this allows them to communicate with the physicians more directly about other referral opportunities that will establish better data for the patient that the physician sent. Okay, they're going to look like smart guys. Okay, they're already smart guys now, right? But they're going to be heroes for the physicians at this point because they're going to help them tremendously in their diagnostic path because nobody understands the testing variables and the opportunities in an imaging center better than the radiologist and the management that operate it. Okay, they're going to be able to do much better consulting directly to their physicians on suggestions that they believe that physician should follow in additional testing, which allows that imaging center or that diagnostic center to continue to adjudicate on other opportunities that they already offer. Okay, guys, I cannot establish for you how important it is to communicate that to the people that are making the decision. It is critical. Okay, like I was telling you before on our other call, if they don't write you a check, they're not listening. Well, if you don't explain this part of it well enough, they may not establish in their decision path on writing that check. Okay, we will definitely cover that viscerally in the discovery calls that we do with them. But that is something that you guys want to understand. This scan is a tremendous value to the physician. We established that. It's an even bigger opportunity for the imaging center or the diagnostic center, especially if they operate multiple services, and most of them do. Okay, so that's just huge for us. I mean, when we figured this out, I remember Mike and Chris and Trip, they were freaking out. They got back on the phone and just started going through this part of it for like hours, just trying to figure out how to establish that dialogue with these imaging centers, because this is going to glue their physicians into all of the opportunities they have, because now they can consult those same physicians on other additional tests that may be required based off the data that they received. Okay, and I imagine as we go further into this, as we build more materials, because guys, we're going to build all kinds of materials for this model. We'll probably even have a booklet that explains exactly what markers may identify into what tests, so that they can share that information even more directly based off of our data with their physicians. They're going to get more business out of them, okay? A lot more business out of them, because they're going to help them establish the requirements needed for further testing in their center, okay? Big deal. Biggest deal I could think about for the next 2 seconds. Okay, so what is it that we're setting up with these centers?
By the way, Beto, that's very well. It's very well put, and what's really important. Sorry, I hesitated. It takes a minute to come on, so I apologize. It's extremely important to identify, as Chris will really reiterate too shortly, the space requirement we discussed earlier. Imagine what this is doing for the additional testing in a minute space of maybe 10 by 10 at the most. And on top of that, this system is so portable that a diagnostic center can actually wheel it around to different locations within their center if they want to do an additional test or do this test preliminarily in advance. And there's no limitations to what they can do with this. You try to move anything else in those facilities around, you got to move the walls. You know, it's just so much more cost effective and requires so much less overall time to evaluate the reports and study with a PEACE program attached to it. It's spectacular. There's nothing like it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mike. All righty, 1 second, make sure my audio's up. Okay, so what's the breakdown? So what is it that we're after? Obviously, the device itself has a $60,000 cost, as you guys saw. That actually comes with our device and a very specific Doppler with ABI that's necessary for establishing some of the medical necessity in our test. So the $60,000, they get all the equipment. We're offering all of the following, and for offering all of the following, they are paying us back 20% of all the reimbursements that they receive through the device management. That's how we all get paid. That's what we've established. In many ways, we are a platform and a technology data company that's working directly with the imaging center or the diagnostic center. The program belongs to them. They hire the techs, right? They establish the communication with their physicians, although we offer the materials for them to do that. Okay, so we're just going to kind of run through real quick here. What are we doing to earn our part of that reimbursement? Well, first of all, we have the RM3A software and medical device hardware. So obviously we have the actual test itself and all of the equipment necessary and the proprietary software that's living on it. The RM3A system installation and setup. So we'll make sure that they get installed properly, that their people know exactly how to use them, and that we kind of work with them at establishing where in their establishment it's going to be best set up. They get the PEACE virtual program management platform. Okay, you guys heard us talk about that, so they get access to our software. Okay, so as part of the relationship, we are managing that data set. We're managing the changes in the algorithms, and we're doing any of the technical customer support that may be necessary for the people they've established relationships with. So tech support for your med techs and users, and so we've got the technical support covered. If the med techs have questions or need to understand how to use something, or any of the users that are there, which would include doctors, and if there's any technical questions, we have a whole ticket program. We've got people on staff that can help them with everything concerning those things. They get the encounter form algorithm creation and billing support. Okay, and that's huge. Okay, that's what we kind of established in our discussion about the algorithms themselves and understanding how the actual LCDs work from state to city to borough. They get the medical technician training platform. So we have a whole training back office that's got videos then in established testing so that they can have the med techs that they do hire to come operate this program trained. Okay, we made all the videos. Okay, Mike came and actually did that here in our office in Henderson. And so we have a whole training platform for their med techs. So they come on and they actually learn how to set up the device. They learn how to read what they need to with the reports and everything that's necessary on that piece of it. And then, of course, medical technician scheduling calendar. Obviously, the med techs can schedule all their opportunities and their openings. So physician scheduling calendar system for patient referral. We talked about that when we were establishing PEACE. Reporting access to all testing systems. So we're going to continue to establish better reporting for the imaging center over time, not just on the report itself or the test itself, but on trending that's happening within all of the patient population of the people that are here, as well as generating other reports that will eventually be based off those additional diagnostics that we talked about. That's the exciting part for us. That is a second version when it comes to actually coding all of that to where you say you could potentially establish this test, this test, this test. That's coming. Okay, right now they can pretty much do that by just reading the report and getting the information that we give them on paper. And then physician schedule calendar, physician dashboard and test analysis back office. All right, reporting access to all testing systems, and then marketing materials for your physician network. So basically everything that we talked about, and we're going to give them all the marketing material they need, and we're going to give them all the sign-up pages that's got their doctor's practice, their diagnostic center practice branded to let the doctors know what they get. And when a doctor goes to that landing page, he'll be able to download the physician's report, watch some videos on PEACE, get established and understood and an understanding of the entire program. We have it all there marketed properly. He can download brochures, and he can also download brochures he can share with his patients. Okay, so the doctor gets access to be able to grab things like brochures for their front desk, and of course, all of the information that they need to participate, right? So we will educate that physician as well as give them the opportunity to sign up and have all the marketing materials ready for that imaging center, that diagnostic center, to immediately establish the relationship with their physician practices. And as we talked about before, once the physician signs up, it's pretty immediate. They get their icon, they pop it onto their desk after they've agreed to the terms between us and them. Very simple terms, everyone, because all we're doing is establishing a relationship for referral, allowing us to send that test back to them. Right? They don't have to pay for any of that, or there's no cost valuation there. It's just basically the agreement that the referral process will be in place and that we will actually produce tests for them. Okay, so we give them all those marketing materials that they need for that. They keep 80% of the reimbursement. Okay, that comes back. We take 20 for basically offering the whole program, giving them access to PEACE and all the services that come along with that. Okay, so that is the current PowerPoint, everybody. So let's talk about some other stuff real quick here. All righty, so you guys all have handouts that we've given you, and some of them are just for you. This one is just for you. What is an imaging center? An imaging center provides a wide range of services for diagnostic imaging and other radiology services. Okay, some of these are just definitions. Some of these are specific. Okay, but basically it breaks down to learning what is established as the operating model of a radiology center. That's what this whole thing is for. Okay, and so if you'll study this, you'll get a much better idea of how an imaging center is set up and what testing they offer. Okay, let me tell you something that's just super important, everybody. Okay. You need to absolutely thoroughly understand who you're talking to. That's what this document is for. Okay, if you go through and study this document, you're going to understand the value that most of these diagnostics and imaging centers offer, the kind of professionals that they have, right, what they do. And I would study this to the degree that you can actually speak the language just a little bit, not saying that you got to understand the science of some other device, but more that you can easily have a conversation with them about things you know that are already there and established. And that may even help you in your discussion path when you're trying to put a hook in and you're trying to get this sale in And you can say, well, you know what, this scan will actually lead to X, X, and X. You can do an ultrasound for these reasons and potentially a CAT scan for these reasons. And you're able to speak with them about their current business model and why our medical device establishes better service to their physicians and higher money being made or income even from their current testing. That's a huge one. You know, even if you think about this, guys, put this in your minds for a minute. Cast your mind with me for a second. So if all they did was run the scan in order to establish other potential test diagnostic paths, and they couldn't even reimburse it, okay? Let's say that we didn't have a very lucrative financial model when it comes to reimbursements. We do. But even if we didn't, these diagnostic centers would pay $60,000 to be able to establish the information needed to have better relationships in their consulting to the referral partners that they have, so that they can establish a much larger book of business of patients coming in for additional testing. Okay, just by itself, if we were just selling this scan to them as a way of them to help in that medical necessity and consulting path with their physicians, they'd still buy it for $60,000 because it's worth it. That's how important it is to understand that part of it. And if you go through this document right here and establish at least a clear enough understanding of your mind of what's happening in a radiology center and what kind of tests they have and what kind of professionals work there, you'll establish in your own mind some steps towards being a more educated salesperson. Okay, and in this case, you really want to understand who we're selling to. It'll help you anyways, period. So that's what this one is. I would spend some good time on this document, kind of running through it, even, hand it to a wife, a friend, or whatever, and just kind of go through every piece of it and just say, this is what I know about women's imaging. This is what I know about vascular interventional. So it's just utilize this particular document, you guys, for education. It's just for you, but it's an important one. Now, this one I really like. This was done, I think Chris did most of it, and whatever collaboration may have happened. This is how much it takes to start a radiology imaging center. Okay, and believe me, knowing this information is extremely useful because, number one, as a salesperson, hopefully it gets you a little bit more excited because look at the costs that are associated here. You think they're going to pop another $60,000 onto their cost volume in order to achieve what it is that we allow them to achieve? Well, they're in a buyer's market. Okay, I'm back to establishing that philosophy and that idea with you a little bit. Okay, they're a buyer's market, right? They buy. They're purchasing medical devices. That's what they do. Those medical devices are their business. It makes them money. Okay, so this just gives you a really clear idea of what it costs to establish an imaging center. Okay, so you understand what the valuation is from that perspective. This is also just internal. This is for you. Okay. Now, obviously, some of the information here at the bottom we added into a slide, but this is so that you can understand the differentials of what's inside of an actual imaging center, right? The imaging center versus the RM3A, as far as other devices that are concerned. Square foot analysis, MRI versus RM3A, ABI Doppler. So just look at the differential that's here, and this can be shared as well if they're trying to figure out the spatial aspects that are necessary or the cost variances that are there. But this is really for you guys to establish in your minds best you can what an imaging center setup looks like. Here's defined what they do, what tests they have, what kind of professionals they have, and what those cost factors look like to actually set up an imaging center. If you know this stuff, you will have some of the best conversations you could possibly imagine with these people. Okay? They'll feel like you're part of their industry. You're going to establish a good experience with them, right? And it's important because these guys are very technically sound. They understand what they do. They know how much it costs. They know why the physicians need what they do there. Okay? They're professional technicians. Okay, so understand it from that perspective, right? So it's definitely important. I would spend, a good few hours on both of these documents. Make your own notes about them, some things that you feel you can remember really well. Okay, so this is the actual center questionnaire. So your first step beyond presenting the information, right? Hey, let me show you a PowerPoint. Here's a flyer. Okay, I'm going to show a few of these things here, is to get this filled out. Okay, you have to fill this out yourself. You can require them to do it. I suggest you don't. And it prints out perfectly in black and white. Okay, it's just established color because we are going to put this up in our VistaPrint center so that you guys can order them. Okay, it's always best to order these in color because it's just kind of fun, more professional when you're sitting there talking to somebody. But get this filled out and get it faxed. Okay. Now, obviously, you have the opportunity to set discovery calls, and again, I really do want to see most of you doing that to start. Okay. This sale is a sale that is closed by you, but there is a very established process of getting them onto the phone with us so that we can talk things through and do some presentations, go over slides, maybe even log into the software, wherever we can drive that discovery conversation to help you close that deal. Okay, but the steps, which we'll talk about in just a minute, really require this to be filled out before that discovery happens. And it's the first thing that you've got to establish with that center. So you have to get the information that's here. Okay, and so just kind of running through it, most of it's fairly general information. We want to know what radiology specialties they have there. They just check. These are just check marks. Service modalities, a number of tests performed by day. This obviously is just checking all that applies. And then referral percentage from the following: private practice, hospitals, advertising out of the country, Canada. They have that information, but team, if you're just happen to get it from them in an estimate, that's okay. Okay, don't drive them into going through all of their data to know exactly which one is which. That could be somewhat of a guess for them. But we want to have somewhat of a good idea of the private practices, hospitals, the direct advertising they've done, or any of the out of the country that they're doing. Accepted insurances. So we want to know if they're accepting any of these majors here. Okay, and just list their top 10 is really what we're after. Okay. What are the top 10 insurances that you're actually using with your establishment? Which ones have you billed on? And then, of course, additional insurances that you just list them. And again, this is an important one. We do need to understand their insurance profile. For any of you that have worked with us in the past with any of the other stuff we've done, we need to know how they're billing. It's very important. And then top 10 referral groups. So who in their physicians, hospital network, medical facility network, who's referring to them the most? Okay, guys, we want the top 10. If they don't want to fill this out at all, they better have really not wanted to. We'd still accept it. Okay, but we really want to know who their top 10 referrals are. We want to take a look at the physician practices or the hospital groups that are actually working directly with them. It'll help us in the dialogue. It'll help us when we're on the discovery call because we can reference those people specifically. We're going to look them up a little bit and, figure out what kind of physicians they are and what they do. Okay, so the top 10 would be the best. Okay, so try to get their top 10. And if you can, just make sure that you're spelling things the right way and you're writing them down properly because we may do research on them. And, of course, your rep name and rep number. So it's just a one-pager. Just get it filled out, fax it into 855-480-9539 from any fax machine, doesn't matter where it is, and then you can go on to establishing the discovery. Now, I don't mind if you do the discovery first, as long as you know you're going to get this information from that imaging center. If we don't have this information on a discovery call, then we have to spend too much of our time establishing this information before we can get into the better conversation about what it's going to do for their center. Okay, so it's just wasted time. Like, we have to ask questions. Sounds like we don't know anything about them, and so this helps us get a clear understanding. We can reference these things in the discovery calls, and it just makes them a lot more powerful. Okay, and we're going to get into the pitch here too in a minute. So this is a flyer. You guys have it. You can print it. Okay, this will be up in VistaPrint as well. But this is the actual invitation to the imaging center. You guys can send this by email. You can go drop it off. But this is similar to what we had before, just a nice 2-page on the actual device and the opportunity for their diagnostic imaging center. Okay, doesn't break into as much information as we did in the PowerPoint, which is fine. but it does give you something immediately you have access to if you wanted to print some of these out so that you can go into the imaging center and give them the information. And of course, you would always want to hand them the practice questionnaire along with this, because those are the two big things, right? So here's the basic information, right, on our program, and then you establish that they need to fill out the questionnaire. You fill it out and get it faxed into that number. Okay, so again, rep name, rep phone number. All of this will be on VistaPrint within the next 24 hours, guys. You guys can access it there, or you're welcome to just print these out yourself. Okay, so let me get into the basic pitch. And honestly, guys, why don't I give, because we're on a long call here, I'm going to give everybody 5 minutes. It's exactly 11 o'clock right now. I'm going to start speaking again at 11:05. If you guys need to get up, use the bathroom, get something to drink, go tell your significant other just how much money you're going to make, because I'm sure you're super jacked out of your mind like I am. But take a break, and we'll get back here at 5 minutes after. Okay, so I'm going to go over the basic pitch, and then I'm going to go over some requirements as far as processing the sale. Okay, and guys, vary this as much as you want. Write your own pitches. I do always suggest that you polish it. I mean, you practice it polished, and there may be some errors in here. This is the last thing I put together before we got on the call today. But that's what I always suggest for people to do. I've been doing sales for a very long time, okay, and I've sold all kinds of stuff, and even out of my engineering company, we're constantly building new technology, and so I've always got to kind of figure out how to garner the pitch depending on what that new technology is. And what I always suggest that you do is you polish it. I mean, you practice it polished. Okay. What I mean by that is you read through the actual pitch itself. And I haven't practiced it well enough myself, so we'll see how that goes. But read through that pitch yourself until you actually pitch it exactly polished the way it's been written, because it teaches you something. It teaches you how to dialogue the information more specifically. It's always good to practice out loud anyways, but practice it polished and then start creating a variance. I didn't like the way this sentence went. I'm going to change it, right? As an example. So we have one of the top medical devices and virtual platforms for diagnostic imaging centers on the market. The size of the patient population that qualify for this test through your physician network will be your largest. Our medical device and program are in the ANS testing, it should say environment, so sorry guys, and comes with a physician portal and platform. But best of all, the cost and management of our system is far less than what you are normally investing in a diagnostic center. We just got done talking about every single thing that I've got in that first paragraph, guys. Okay, so if you want to say this and be able to back it up really well, just go back through this video a few times, okay? Doctors need these results as it will allow them to better manage the health of their overall patient population. In the advancing requirements on practices to engage in wellness programs to track the progress of patient results, nothing compares to our system. Our virtual platform also fills out your encounter forms through our carefully managed algorithms, guaranteeing you the best results in reimbursements. These reimbursements are very competitive to anything else you are offering and could easily be your biggest earner on a monthly basis. I can schedule a discovery call so that I can have one of our senior advisors walk you through the values of having this program in your center. Okay, so that's the basic pitch. Okay, and if you notice that within those 3 paragraphs, I kind of touched on certain key points, right? The algorithms for billing, the fact that this is the largest patient population they're going to have access to, right? There's a good valuation in this, but you want to vary this pitch. You want to write some of your own stuff out, and as you learn more, write down things that are important to that. Okay, so here's just some talking points, and these are not complete by any measure. I just added a few of them. Okay, it's less expensive than most programs they are running. The number of qualified patients establishing medical necessity is larger than any other test they offer. This test will greatly increase their center's revenue for a cost to program management that is a fraction of what they are spending on other programs. We make it very easy for physicians to order the test and schedule their patients to come in. Reimbursements are competitive and due to the time allotted per test, the overall ROI is potentially higher than their most lucrative test per week, the MRI. And again, you've got that slide to prove that. This test can and will lead to other testing referrals from their physicians and establishes medical necessity they can share with their network. We talked about that, becoming more of a consultant and getting more tests done. Okay, none of our competitors have a diagnostic center program. That is fact. We are the only one. If they have looked at this device before, which they may have, or they may have seen it running in one of their doctor's practices, they have never been introduced to Peace. This platform is what makes the Diagnostic Center program seamless and profitable. So if you're speaking with the Diagnostic Center owner, okay, or manager, however it may be, the medical director, they may have tell you, well, I've looked at this device before. Talk to one of your guys. I've spoken with a salesperson in this industry. If that happens, you want to immediately go to the valuation of the Peace platform, okay? And that we are the professionals that engineered the actual platform needed to be successful in the diagnostic center industry, and we're the only ones that have done it, okay? And then you tell them, well, half the story is all you've gotten from any other sales group, half the story. Because they may have a device that generates the report, but they don't have the platform. And the platform is what makes this whole process worth it to you, okay? There's lots of things coming in the future for AWS, you guys, that you're just going to get super excited about. We already have a sale that is just a no-brainer sale, okay? Where's my checkbook? Really, this is one of the first ones I've ever seen that's just so clean, okay? So the reality is if they've talked to any other sales group or any other distributor, they've only got half the story. And you want to drive straight into the platform itself if it gets to that part of the conversation, because that's what makes it work for them. Okay, that's the piece that really creates the value in what we're doing. Okay, we are the top company in the industry. We're not a distributor. We are an actual fully managed platform and program for a diagnostic center and imaging center. Okay, we are partners in that process at their size. Okay, everyone else has these direct doctor programs that they're okay. I mean, we've been developing a lot of relationships there ourselves, but we're the only one that have the platform that makes this work for an imaging center or diagnostic center in the entire industry. Okay, so if that's where the conversation goes, remember to kind of keep that in mind. All right, so steps to the program. Okay, so let's just kind of go through this. Number one, share the flyer and the PDF presentation with the Diagnostic Center and answer any preliminary questions. Remember to lead everything towards a discovery call, but be prepared to close the deal on your own. Okay, everyone's different out there, and I don't mean just you guys on this phone or you people. I mean just in general that there's going to be different personalities that we're dealing with these owners. Okay, they may want to sit down and not talk to anybody but you. Okay, they may be very open to getting a discovery call set. Now, that is what you want. You want our help because it will be a great education for you to listen. That's been a Beto Paredes family of companies protocol forever. Okay, you want to be on discovery calls because then you can listen to the way we pitch. Okay, the pitch is never good enough when I'm just explaining it to you on a 3-hour training. Okay, where you're really going to learn how to pitch this and discuss this is when there's imaging center owners that are asking questions and we're answering those questions. Okay, we can't necessarily do that on here unless I invited a special guest, which would have been great, but that's not how we were doing that today. Okay, you want to be on those discovery calls. It's going to help you be a much better salesperson almost instantly. Okay, so number two, fill out or have the center fill out the center questionnaire. Now, guys, I sent out a version of this pitch and I didn't have that in there for whatever reason, but it is there. Okay, I'll resend this information out, but they have to fill out the actual center questionnaire. This will need to be faxed in prior to the discovery call, but you can schedule the discovery call first as long as you are confident you will get this information in before the screencast. Okay, if we get on a phone call and we don't have that practice questionnaire and we haven't been able to do a little bit of research, again, like I told you, we're going to be just a little bit too green. We're going to have to ask preliminary questions that will take up a lot of time in the call, right? I'd rather be like, well, I can see which insurances you guys are taking. They work really well with us. And I researched your top 3 referrals. Okay, the neurology center that you guys work with, I want to be a little bit more specific into how you're going to talk to them and why it's valuable for them. You see what I'm saying? It's like I've already got enough information that I can intelligently start the dialogue in that discovery. Okay, so that's why it's just super critical that we do have that center questionnaire in before we actually have the discovery call itself. So, all right, so there are 2 sets of paperwork that will finalize the agreement. After the full pitch has been presented, an AWS senior manager will share the paperwork with them on signing up for the lease and or direct purchase and the Peace management agreement. So the administrative requirements of the company, once we get to the point that it's time to present paperwork, does get managed through our staff, meaning Mike's group and Chris's group will send out the official paperwork to that particular practice. To that particular center to be signed. Okay, and there's two major signatures that they have. There's the ownership and device lease that they have directly for the device itself, and then there's the actual peace agreement that establishes the relationship, that their access to the portal and all of the services that we offered in order to get the 20% of the adjudications. Okay, so there's two pieces of paperwork that they have to fill out. Now there could be a third if they are needing to actually fill out an application for a lease, but that's all just part of getting that agreement signed. Okay, but that will be dealt with directly by administration. Okay, and when they do, they will CC you on all the communications going back and forth so you can see where that's at. Because once they get to a particular point in administration, meaning that they understand the terms, okay, of both the peace agreement and of the of either the lease or purchase agreement, okay, and they're clear. At that point, administration job's done. It's now back over to you. If they can't just get them to sign, because let me tell you something. We're going to be trying to get them to sign the whole time. Okay, when Chris is on the phone, he'll be like, "Where's your pen?" When Mike's on the phone, he's going to be like, "Let's get started," right? So any of the opportunities we have to close them during that process, we'll just close them up, okay? Because we're not trying to regulate that. We're all a team. But once we've gotten there and they have had the paperwork and they do know what the terms are, that is turned back over to you for follow-up to get those signatures done. Okay, so I'm waiting for Chris and Mike to send me any of the changes that we've made to that paperwork, and I'll get you guys a copy of it because you're going to want to know what's on there. Okay, you want to understand it, but that does not stop you in any measure from hitting the ground today. Okay, because that's just stuff we're just cleaning up real quick. Because probably even tomorrow we'll have it. Okay, and we won't be to that part of the discussion with any of your leads, and for a few days in the quickest. And so the reality is, there's no reason for you guys not to freaking go through this for a couple hours and maybe even spend your last hour on the phone today. Okay, so you're more than welcome to go ahead and get started with that. But that's how that part of the process works. Once we actually get to the point that they are interested and they want the official admin paperwork, that will come out from our admin office. You'll be CC'd on it, and then any of the discussions about purchasing, leasing, or anything concerning the actual metrics of the peace policy that's in the agreement, those will be explained, discussed, and potentially closed. It's just not our responsibility. You're the one earning the commission. If it does go past that point, you were to follow up and finish that sale. Okay. Where are we at? Sorry. Okay. Once we've established the exact terms of the agreement, there will be administrative discussions going back and forth, but it is your job to get them to sign and get started with us. Okay. So I just explained that a little bit better, but that's number 4. Once they are officially signed up and the money is transferred into our account for the cost of the equipment, you will be paid weekly for the upfront sale at $2,500 a device sold. Okay. So you've got a check coming at the close, guys. Okay. Now, obviously, we've got to take that. We've got to take that process and get the money. So, in other words, it's not available to you until we have it in the account. We've got to officially have that payment in from the company. But once it is, that week, you will get in that week's payments that $2,500. Okay, so that is a commission direct on the actual sale of the program that's going to come to you quickly. Okay, we will be receiving
also,
our
Beto,
first
just real quick.
Yeah.
Before you go to the next spot there, one thing that really helps too with you as a rep, if you're in touch with these people, you happen to be in an area where you can get into their facilities. Once that paperwork gets done and the application's approved and everything's finished, and the e-docs go out is what they're called. They're DocuSign. If we don't see an immediate response, it can really, really speed up the process if you as a rep can get in there and show them how that documentation is doing, DocuSign stuff, so they know where it is and they're able to get it signed off on real quickly and done. So it doesn't happen all the time, but in that case, wherever you're close to them, that's a really good thing to do.
Yeah, and again, you'll be aware of that
too.
You'll be aware of that process because you're going to be CC'd on all the communications going back and forth. And Mike, we should probably, once we're done, hopefully next day here, we should probably just make a video on paperwork. Guys, we'll put a video up for you on that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I think that'd be a good move. Yeah.
Okay. So we will be receiving our first reimbursement rev share from the practice billed for the first week on the turn of the 5th week. So basically the way it works is they have to have time to send their encounter forms in for adjudication to the insurers and to receive that money back. And we kind of understand that time variance pretty well because we've got a number of customers already that we're working with on that. And so we bill for the first week of activity in the 5th week, which basically establishes them a 6-week cycle. Okay, because you bill for that first week at the beginning of the first of that week, and then it's due net 7. Okay, so they're basically paying us for that first week 6 weeks out, and then on the 6th week we bill for the 2nd. On the 7th week we bill for the 3rd. On the 8th week we bill for the 4th. So once that's established, then we're actually billing them weekly on those percentages. Okay, so just wanted to make sure that was clear. We will be receiving our first reimbursement. I'm going to read this again. We will be receiving our first reimbursement rev share from the practice billed for the first week on the turn of the 5th week. So that's what that means. And then we bill weekly from there. All officially received reimbursements will be paid the week that they are realized in a bank and officially available. So now officially available means we've got the report done. Okay, and we're going to establish to get those reports done within a 7-day period. Depending on how busy we get, it may be a little bit longer, but once that's been established, you'll be shared that report, and then that pay cycle, you will receive your part of that reimbursement. So you will be receiving 5% of our share of the revenue. Okay, so we get 20%, you're getting 5% of that, and this comes to an average of $3.78 per test run. Okay, so that's what you're making for every single test that's ran in the center that's gone through adjudication. But this will vary state to state and by the allowances from the insurance company reimbursement. So it's not an exact dollar amount. This is an estimate because we're basing our percentages on our earnings, right? And not everyone will get the exact same dollar amount for running this test from every single one of the insurers. And so we have to get that information back, and then we're sharing that with you. But if you think about this, okay, most centers will be running 10 to 15 tests a day. Okay, so when you've got 10 to 15 tests a day running on one device, and you're getting $3.78 every time a test is ran, well, you can kind of establish what that's going to look like for you in residuals, okay, on a monthly basis. But here's the reality, okay? We're in the middle of a Pueblo imaging sale right now, okay? We're in the middle of a Pueblo imaging sale right now. And they're probably going to need 14 devices, guys, okay? And even an average center is going to probably need 3, maybe 5. And they may start with 1 or they may start with 3. It all depends on how well we do in the discussion path and their belief that we've got something that's really going to establish a solid marker for them. Okay, why would they want to miss out on all this money? They'd want to get this going as fast as they can. They're going to make a grip of money off of this. Okay, and we could actually run performance for them, but we in this industry, we want to make sure that we do that on request. So if they want to kind of see performance based on spreadsheet information, we try not to just give that as a marketing piece because we're establishing some variance of expectation because, like I said, it varies. But the reality is they're not going to want to stop at one device because it's going to establish everything that we talked about. They're going to need 2, 3, 4. If they've got 2 to 3 locations, it could easily be a 5-device sale. If they're up to 7, like they are at Pueblo Imaging, with how busy they are, with the size of their referral network, they could easily decide they need 14. Okay? Every time they buy a device, that's a $2,500 commission to you immediately. Every time they buy a device, you're making an average of $3.78 a test. So if you take that by 10 devices in a fairly good size imaging center, you can kind of see what that's going to do for your wallet, guys. It's pretty substantial. Okay, this is a great program for you to be involved in. It's very, very high on the rewards on the front end, and the residual income over time is just mind-blowing to me. So with that stated, that is the end of our discussion on how all those things work. I am now going to turn the time over to Chris because he's going to talk a little bit about researching an imaging center. And so he's going to go through some of that and things that you need to look for and what's important. So Chris, I'm going to go ahead and give you the screen if you're ready for that.
Yes, I am. Give me 1 second, please. Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and tell me what you see.
There we go. I see a skeleton. Yep.
There you go. We're at the Pueblo Medical Imaging website, which is in Nevada. When you go to a website, most people that may know about it, or people actually that don't know what you're looking for, is there's a really couple interesting things. You know, an imaging center is a lot different than a private practice. A private practice is open from 8 to 5, 9 to 5. Maybe they have later hours on 1 or 2 nights. But the cool thing about an imaging center, if we just go to contact and locations, this is going to tell you how many locations they have and their hours of operation. Now, Beta was just talking about how many tests he believes we can provide in a day. If you start looking at these hours, Monday through Friday, this is in the Southwest, Monday through Friday, they're open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 4:30. This is an 88-hour week right here, just at this one location. Some locations may be limited on Sunday. They may not be open, but for the most part, a lot of the diagnostic centers, the imaging centers, are open Monday through Sunday. And you can see they've got a full-length day here. So when you're talking about maybe the 10 to 15, it's going to be a lot more tests per device than, you know, just on a normal day. We're talking once again about 88 working hours that that 2 of the sites are open. And it doesn't show the other sites that they have, but the nice thing is you can see locality-wise where they're in terms of Las Vegas. The nice thing about these hours, you can catch the people that, you know, are just getting off in the morning, maybe from the casinos at, you know, 7 a.m. and come in and get an MRI or any other type of test maybe ordered for them. Or if they're off on the weekends, then it gives the people that work Monday through Friday come in the weekends. But that may be Saturday and Sunday or just Saturday at Somerville or the Green Valley location. The other thing you want to go to is many of the different websites have it labeled. The headers are different, but in this particular one, it's about PMI. So we want to go once again, and we want to look at the radiologist. I'll wait till that loads. The nice thing about the radiologist, you want to go down, as you're starting to go down, look at radiologists, you really want to pay attention to their specialties. If you know what their specialties are in terms of radiology, you're going to know what kind of testing they're going to do. You know, this one is neuroradiology. So you know they're going to be doing cranial, they're going to be doing spine. This one's a musculoskeletal. These guys are going to be doing orthopedics. This one here is in body imaging. You come down, body imaging, you got neuroradiology, you got basic diagnostic radiology, and this one here is interventional radiology, which is a very high level of radiology when you're doing the catheters and things like that to look at your organs within the body. This woman here is woman imaging radiology. You probably look at mammographies, looking for cancer, breast cancer. The key to our, you know, when we're doing the vascular testing right here, it's the vascular interventional radiology. This guy would resonate, obviously, when it comes to our testing. So the nice thing about the imaging center, when the billing's going to be done, the global component means both the professional, the read, and the technical, which is the technician on that back end, will both be sent out by the diagnostic center under a provider that's under the vascular interventional radiology specialty. So it gives everything right here. You can see it. If you want to, you can click in info, more info. Probably what it's going to do is take you to a quick snapshot of his CV, his resume, where he went to school, what he studied, what he's board certified, and what he did a fellowship in here. Go back. So it will take you down. It will actually give you, it's probably, I would say it's going to give you all the providers they have within the practice here. Right now we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 19, 20. So there's 20 providers. I'm sure these providers share the reads at the other locations. They may have just one central place they read, or they may just commute to the different locations throughout the week. The other thing which Beto was talking about too is our services. So you can click on our services, which actually is going to be what they perform within their facility. You can see here they got the 3T MRI scanner. Once again, the 3T is used more on cranial and spinal. Then you got the 1.5. You can see the 1.5 is half as a 3T scanner, which is an open MRI, and sometimes it's people that are obese or are claustrophobic. And then you have the MRA. So when it comes to the MRI and MRA, they may also be providing contrast with that, and that provides you a more granular image. You got CT, you've got low dose CT lung screening. I think definitely as we start looking through the encounter form, the markers will identify that you're probably we can definitely know this for a fact, it's going to be CT coronary artery screening. We've got ultrasounds, we got MRIs here at the top, which is from a neurological position. And then you'll see this is mammography, MRI of the breast, that's the women's imaging. You got a breast biopsy, fluoroscopy, and the x-ray. The nice thing about these is you can actually click on the plus sign, and that will actually provide you the information you need of why that test is performed and when they perform it. If there's any kind, you can see right here, the single contrast right here. Or they have other types of swallowing methods that they'll do in the different services provided for the fluoroscopy. The other thing here you can go look at too is you can see when it comes to patients, you can kind of look at their form if you want to. I mean, it's up to you if you want to do that, but I'll give you an indication of what kind of information are they, obtaining on the patient themselves. There's a consent form. They've got a form in Spanish. Obviously, it's out in Las Vegas. Transportation information. There are some payers like the Medicaid that will pay for transportation, but the other cool thing too is right here. That's the insurance list. It's pretty voluminous. So you can look down here and you can see, once again, the site that they have listed right here. And you're going to see all their information for insurance by alphabet. As you can tell, it's a very large list. And the reason why it's a very large list is because the more insurances they participate with, the more referrals they'll obtain. So the cool thing about an imaging center is, number one, the hours that they're open versus a private practice. Number two, an imaging center is used to having test workflows. That means that whole center, that's all they do all day. They test people. Private practices and some environments, they're not used to doing tests. And when they try and implement a process, it sometimes becomes difficult because they're not used to that triage method. When it comes down to imaging center, they have the workflow, they have the technicians, they have the radiologists, they have the entire workflow. And then they also have the workflow get information back to the referring physician. So that's just a quick snapshot of what I would be looking for if I was going to get prepared to go and meet with a potential imaging center. And that way you can talk fluid with them about how we can actually provide the RM3A and implement ANS testing, and why at the end of the day you would see that probably to be a strong revenue generator within that imaging center. Not only that, but per square foot, obviously it's going to be the less costly device to have within there, and the highest profit margin. Anything else I need to add, Beto?
No, that was very useful. I do want to add one thing critical, guys, is we're working on this cell. And so we went and studied them. We're still studying them. Okay, so do your research. If you're going to work with an imaging center and you've already got some preliminary interest, go look them up. Understand their business. Okay, and that goes in 3 steps. First step is going through our documentation. Okay, in fact, I'm going to take over the thing,
go ahead,
if you don't mind. And, okay, so in other words, going back here, guys, and what is an imaging center? Understand the information on this flyer. Okay, this is for you. It looks nice and fancy, but we actually just made it for you guys. Radiology center and what it costs to start them up, right? The comparison of their major device to ours. Okay, go through and understand these things, right? If you do it, you would at least understand the score of what it would cost and why it's valuable for them to spend the money with us. And they will. They're buyers. They're going to buy from us, okay? And then, of course, take the advice that Chris is giving right now. Understand who they are. Okay, this is a lifetime customer for you. Okay, they're going to need a device. They're going to need 3. They may need 5. Maybe our system brought them in so much money they open up 5 more centers. Okay, guys. I mean, we could play a very, very major role in their growth, and so realize this is a lifetime customer for you. It's a lifetime customer for us. Okay, so take the time to study them. Okay, these are going to be good sales. You guys will be well rewarded, but over time, those residuals are just going to keep coming in. We're just going to keep paying you. Okay, so realize that it's just a big opportunity for you on that side. Okay, so what I would like to do now is go into the Beto Paredes back office real quick. Most of you are very familiar with what's back here, but I just want to be specific into setting this discovery call so that you can actually get in here and do it. So that is done through your back office in Beto Paredes. And basically you've got to add them in as a lead first. So you go to your lead list, and in here you're going to want to add them, right? So you go to add leads, and I'm just going to go ahead and put in some fake information, but this will be the big imaging center down the street. So this is the company name. We need to have that for sure. The first and last name of who we're meeting with. Okay, so this, again, I got my name in here, but it could be the center's main person. So it might be John Rogers, whatever it might be. Make sure you've got the exact name of the person we're going to be speaking with. We need the exact address of the location. And here mine just did finish. I need all of it. So in other words, this would be Henderson, Nevada, 89012. So get the full address in there. Make sure you reference that, even if you've got to check the phone book or anything else, or on their online website, just to make sure you got that accurate. We need the phone number of the center. So this is the actual center's main phone number. So if you can get the cell phone number of the guy we're talking to, I would put that in instead. But that's the main center number. If they've got a website, we want to know what it is. Okay, that's very important. Just as Chris had showed you, we're going to be doing our own research when it comes to the discovery calls. And then again, if you can get their mobile number. So main center number and mobile number. I forgot that those were separated. And then you come down here and you put in what the product is. Now this whole system is going to get cleaned up. We've had a lot of stuff available, but we're going to go ahead and select Advanced Wellness Solutions and hit Submit. All righty. Now, if you notice, I am now the top lead in my back office. Okay. So now that lead's in here, you go right here on the right-hand side, right here, to set up a discovery call. So you click on Discovery Call. Okay, and it says which product, because you may have multiple products you'll be selling to the same places, like what we may be doing with MedWorld One of these imaging centers. Great relationship. But I'm going to go ahead and click on Advanced Wellness Solutions and hit Book. Okay, now this brings up meeting with Advanced Wellness Solutions and Principal Beto Paredes. So this is going to put an appointment on my calendar, and as I can, I will add in Chris and Mike as much as possible, but I will for sure be there. So here's all the times that are available. You can select that by time zone if you want to change the time zone and look at it from that perspective, make it easier. But I'm just going to go ahead and pick a time. So this is going to be 2:10 at 2 o'clock. I'm going to hit Book Now. Pops up the actual calendar edit. And right here, meeting with Advanced Wellness Solutions and Principal Beto Paredes. Okay, so that's the actual top part of what's going to come out to them in the invite. Okay, so this is a calendar invite you're setting up right now. You've got the participant's email, right? Right now, this is beto@betoparedes.com because I just put myself in there. The participant's name, that's all pulled from what you guys did. Their phone number. And then down here, remember, this point is rep's message to calendar owner, discovery closer. What does that mean? That means that, if I can spell, anything that I put here is only seen by the calendar owner. Is that for spelling things wrong? Okay, so what that means, you guys, is anything that you put in this field will actually be emailed to me directly. They don't see it. Okay, what they get immediately is information for the GoToMeeting line. Okay, and that's instant. So the minute I hit save, and that's booked, your booking's done successfully. That's now shown up on my calendar. Okay, not only has that shown up on my calendar, but it's also sent the invite to them. Okay, so now they've received an invite directly from me for the discovery call. And if they open up that invite immediately, it has all of the information on there for the discovery call meeting, which is go to meeting. If they only dial in by phone, we deal with it from that perspective, but we hope they'll jump on an actual computer and allow us to have control of the screen. So if we have any reason to show things and go through things from that perspective, we've got that opportunity. Okay, so that's what that does. Most of you already know that because you've been working with me for quite some time, so you're already in the know on that. But I just wanted to make sure that was as clear as I could get it. Okay, just as clear as I could get it. You got to come in here and set a discovery meeting in the Beto Paredes back office. Okay, and I just went through how to do that. Now, everybody, I would suggest something very, very close to my heart. Okay, this is recorded. This is recorded. Go back through it again. It may be close to 3 hours. I think we're probably going to hit about 2 hours and 40 minutes here. But go back through it. Learn the product. Okay, go through the materials. Learn what the radiology centers do. Okay, understand this well enough to pitch it. Okay, that's just important that you do that, right? Spend a few hours getting prepared and then get on the phone. This is a great opportunity. Okay, we are talking to buyers. We have got some of the top reasons for them to buy from us. Probably better than anybody else is approaching them with any other program they have. Okay, the more educated you are, the more you understand the actual paradigm of the product and the service that they're offering to their physicians, the better. Okay, so thank you for jumping on, everybody. This will be sent out in exactly 1 hour, so that you can grab that. And I'm going to answer a couple of questions here that I think are important. So, yes, Will, equipment financing is available. Okay, it's a big part of how we do it. Imaging centers very well just choose to buy it outright, and that option's there. But yes, we do have equipment financing that is available for them. Let's see here. Equipment. Okay, let's see, Monica. Can the results imported by the doctors into the patient platform they're working with? Okay, so just as it's been, they're able to take those reports and put them into their EMRs. And that's not something that's done through APIs. And then that's that way for every competitor that we have too. But they're very easily added. And so yes, they can download that report and add it straight to their EHR. The EMRs. And so hopefully that answered your question there. But as far as APIs are concerned, man, we may look into that. We may look into that because we're storing that data, but nobody in the industry is doing it exactly like that right now. But the doctor easily can download that and add it to their patient profiles. All right, everybody, thank you so much for spending the time with me, and I am excited about you guys getting started. It is 11:42. I'm probably going to take a break for a couple hours, but after 2 o'clock my time, if you want to talk to me, text me. Okay? If you have questions about it, I'm here. Okay? I want to get this going. I'd like to see this shut off this week. And again, if you're involved in all of our programs, you know we're doing a lot in medical. Okay, this is your doorway right now into getting involved in that part of our company and get some real money earned in your pocket. Okay, my guess is that the average on imaging center sales is going to be anywhere from 3 to 5 machines. Okay, and that may start as 1, but more than likely we're going to try to pitch them on 3. Okay, depending on the size of their practice and how many doctors are referring to them. Okay, and so this could be a $7,500 upfront for you, very, very easily, if not 10, 15,000 upfront over time for the number of devices they're buying. And every time they put one to work, you guys are making that dollar amount on every single test, which is average of about $3.78. Okay, so this is a big deal, you guys. You spend 3 months here, 2 months here, just knock out 4 or 5 imaging centers, and you've got a nice fat residual income coming on a consistent basis, month after month. Okay, so very interested in knowing your thoughts, your feelings. If you have any questions or concerns, please just get a hold of me directly. And Chris and Mike, is there anything that you'd like to say in closing? Maybe not.
Yes.
All right, guys. Go ahead.
The important thing is you got to do your homework. You got to understand the place you're going to go to. You got to understand their environment to the best that you can research it on. You got to look at the websites. You got to write this stuff down. When you meet with these people, they're sophisticated. They're going to know what their cost per square foot is to run their center. They're going to know what it is per square foot, what their profit margin is. They're going to know all that information. If you're talking to a successful center, believe me, the CEO, the owner, the doctors know that stuff. They know it piece by piece. Because guess what? You know, if there's an imaging center that's privately owned, there's a profit at the end of the day. And so those doctors know for every time they do an MRI, what that amount's going to be. Anytime they do a CT, anytime they do a mammo, anytime they run any test, they know what that profit margin is. So you got to do your homework, and then you also got to be cognitive of the state you're in. You know, and then you got to look at the payer mix as well. The payer mix is really important because some may not have certain devices that another, you know, imaging company may have. So once again, do your homework, look at the hours. The hours are a huge key. Once again, we go back to the Pueblo Imaging Center website. 2 of the centers are open up 88 hours a week. That's massive. Most practices are open up 40 to maybe 50 hours a week. So that adds a lot more to their revenue side of the house. So that's what I would give as advice as you go into this. And then if you need anything, please reach out to one of us, including Beto. A lot of times it's better to get, you know, Michael, myself, and Beto on the phone at the same time because we can get a lot more traction than just by one of us, and you'll have all 3 of our attention. So that's my advice. Thank you. Beto?
That's funny. I'm sitting there talking. I was on mute. Thanks, Chris. So, anyways, what I was saying is that you know, get ready for this. Get going on this. Okay, guys, you could be making calls this week. Okay, those of you that are ambitious, tomorrow morning. Those of you that are extremely ambitious, by 4 o'clock today. Okay, study through this. Put it through like you're in college. Okay, like you're going to take a test on all this stuff, which will probably be the way it's set up in the future. Okay, just get the knowledge that you need and get out and get these center conversations going because it's just well worth your time. This is going to make you a lot of money, and it's going to put solid money in your pocket month after month. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining. And with that, we are done with our training.